95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Hey, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome on in to 3 hours of fantastic sports talk for the Flower City. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950. You can find the Fan Rochester and the free-to-download Odyssey, iHeartRadio, and TuneIn apps. And our stream is up and rolling now on our YouTube channel and Twitch at the Fan Rochester. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
Do you believe this is 69 degrees?
I don't.
I don't.
Who gave us that?
No, it was
thermometer?
Greg. Greg came up big time for us.
Yeah.
Last year when we were having
You know what? We look ridiculous today because we're both bundled up. I was doing work in my office. Gene poked his head in. He's like, "Dude, it's cold in here. It's like blowing cold air out of the vent up there above me." And from the moment he said that, I just started freezing. I'm like, "Yeah, it is. It's cold." But if I look at the thermostat or I look at the temperature, it says what you're seeing, 69 degrees. I'm like, it's a nice temperature. Don't get me wrong. But it doesn't feel like it. It feels a lot colder than that. And I was saying to you how we've reached the point of winter where I'm just in a constant state of cold. Like, it doesn't really affect me anymore. I might as well just shovel my driveway in shorts and it doesn't really bother me. Like, it's been cold for so long now that if you're like me, it's fine, whatever. But yeah, that hit me just a few minutes ago.
Well, if you are watching on YouTube or Twitch, hello. Looks like I'm dressed to rob a bank here today. That's how I kind of appear, and I don't care. I don't care. I just want to be. I want to be comfortable. Danger.
Yeah. Well, I ran into
comfortable in your own home. Your neighbors have it, and you can too.
I ran into a friend doing my dad duties yesterday at Weggy's, and he said I looked like I was going incognito because I was bundled up as much as I was. We're just in a perpetual state of cold, but no complaints. We've got a good afternoon here in the sports bar. We're going to talk plenty of Buffalo Bills with Dan Fates from Buffalo Plus, 13 Wham Sports, who's stepping by here in about 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, the coaching staff continues to kind of evolve, and things happen rather quickly, as we knew that Pete Carmichael Jr. was the OC on Friday, and by the time we got to the end of the day on Saturday, hey, the Bills have their man, Jim Leonard, who was sought after, and that's a win, I believe, for the Bills to get him an up-and-comer on the defense. Does this mean growing pains? Does it mean different personnel? We will talk to Dan Fates, 13 Wham, Buffalo Plus, and also, Danger, I think we can start to discuss personnel. Seems like we're kind of behind on that just a little bit when it comes to free agency and cap. It's been so much happening here. Well, when you have two new coordinators, how does that impact everything? Our buddy Dan Fates will be coming up at the bottom of this hour.
Now, the Senior Bowl happened last weekend. If you didn't pay attention, don't worry. We're here for you. We got Thor Nystrom, who does a great job with the draft, and also Score North out of Minneapolis. We'll talk some Vikings as well, as they're kind of they're a show after firing their GM on Friday.
Yeah, it's funny how like the Senior Bowl itself is almost the afterthought. It really is the practices. It's the one-on-one interviews. It's, hey, we want to make sure this is our first time for FaceTime. When you get to the game on Saturday, it's kind of an afterthought, like I said. When I talked to Thor, he was already back in Minnesota, so he went down the whole week down to Mobile.
Didn't stay for the game.
Right. And as soon as I got off the phone with him, the Vikings fired their GM. So there was that from Friday. Thor will be coming up in the 4 o'clock hour.
Love it. You can join us this afternoon on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line. 866-4FAN is the phone number. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester, goodsmokebbq.com.
And just thank you to everybody who came out to the Amber game on Friday. That was a lot of fun. Thanks to all the guys for Hall of Fame night. Thanks to Warren Kozel for setting us up. Marty Baron was fantastic. Nathan Page, Don and Andrew. So fun show, and you and I don't take that for granted. And Good at the Amerks beat Hershey, Danger, on Friday.
Yeah, it was fun. If you missed our conversation with Marty Baron, you can also get the Sports Bar wherever you get your shows, every podcast platform. Search out the Sports Bar. You can hear Marty's take on why these Buffalo Sabres have gotten hot this season, although they fell Saturday night to the Canadians. The Canadians come from behind, and I'm still bothered. I'm still bothered by how many red sweaters were in the
As
lower
you
bowl.
should.
And
As you
it
should.
just drives me nuts. I mean, when they score that first goal, I'm like, my God. It feels like, it sounded like, watching at home, it sounded like that was at least 50% Canadian fans.
Probably more. And good on Darlene for, kind of saying, like, this, what wasn't good to have that many Canadian fans in the building. I would say this, though. You're not selling those tickets this week. You put those tickets up back in the fall or when you got your season tickets. So this is something that has been planned out for everybody that comes over the border. Hopefully you spend a lot of money. Sabres tonight in Florida. We will have that first game they played down in Sunrise this season. There was many things we could take out of our conversation with Marty Baron, Danger, but one, because it's not a one thing. That's the thing. Like, what changed? And we can't point to one thing, but he gave us one anecdote, and it was a Sabre win down in Nashville. And for Tage Thompson, leader on this team, nearing the end of his shift, one-on-one, just to simply dump the puck. We're up by one.
Right.
We're at the midway point of the third. We don't need to be taking any chances that could potentially lead to an odd man rush. It's like, wow, okay. Maybe the coaching is finally taking hold, and maybe just the same consistent message from Lindy Ruff and the staff. Maybe it's starting to click in here. I
did run into Marty again on Friday night at the arena. First intermission, he was signing in the beer garden, and I was having a couple of cold ones with some buddies, and he won't let it go. He wouldn't let my jersey go. He's like, "You still haven't changed your jersey. You haven't fixed your jersey." He gave me a hard time because I don't have a name and number on the back of my Amerks jersey. I got to work on that now. I've got a little bit of an insecurity. I've got jersey insecurity.
So I wanted just to say, wait a second, why don't we get like Baron 43? And he told the story. Like, how do you end up with 43? Well, he was 0-0 in Buffalo. He comes down, as the equipment guy, can I have 0-0? No, you're a rookie. You get one. Okay. Yeah. And then later on, what was left that wasn't one? One as a goalie number is kind of, I can understand why you wouldn't want that as a number. He got but what was available was 43. He started playing well, just kind of stuck with it.
All I remember from playing hockey as a kid were the two numbers were 1 and 35. Those were the two goalie numbers. I just always remember.
Yeah.
You were either 1 or you were 35, but 43 stuck. And I think that was his campaign to try and get me to get a 43 and a Baron on the back of my Amerks jersey. But I got some work to do apparently before we run into Marty, before our paths cross again. I can't be held insecure. I can't be insecure wearing a jersey. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's plenty of places that can do the embroidery for you. Danger will look legit. So
there you go. The table is set. If you want to join us this afternoon, again, the number is 866-4326. So. Where do we start here with the Buffalo Bills?
Let's start with Leonard, because that's a big hire. Chargers were after him. Baltimore stuck their nose in. Pittsburgh, maybe they moved off in a different direction. And I believe it's somebody, Danger, that is going to bring new ideas, might be a little bit more aggressive. And with that comes maybe some growing pains, because I'm not sure, we don't know, like what kind of personnel is going to be needed for this defense. And you're hoping that you already had that conversation when you hired Jim Leonard. Okay, you've got one safety. Who's going to be the other safety? Are they counting on Taylor Rapp for recovery? Have we seen his last down? What about a guy that really was a McDermott process guy in Cam Lewis? A lot of guys on that side of the ball are finger quote McDermott guys. So is there going to be wholesale changes on the defensive side of the ball? And it's a question I think that is worth exploring. Do you change the scheme? I was even talking with Danger in his office today, like, what about somebody like Terrell Bernard? Because Terrell Bernard, 2 years ago, defensive captain, making great plays, strips the ball in the Baltimore game. Yeah, this year was kind of a lost cause. You could say it was just because of the injuries, but is there something else? Could you perhaps upgrade? But you pointed out, maybe he is a fit here for Jim Leonard and this defense. So that's an interesting part. I'm just happy that they changed this up, that it's time. That you can go to all these playoff losses, and we can point to how Josh Allen had the ball in instances in the Denver game. Hey, he misses Knox. Again, you put up 30 points in a playoff loss. Now, you're going to give up 33. Chances are you're going to lose that game. So, to me, can the defensive side of the ball get better? I understand there were a lot of injuries here, but we were saying this all along. Like, for Joe Brady, that didn't really excite Bills fans. Here's something shiny and new. The Jim Leonard defense. Okay, he was a coordinator at Wisconsin. He had success there. He's an up-and-comer. Can he talk to this generation? I'm excited about it.
So in the spirit of hiring people that you trust, people that you know, that you have relationships with, Bobby April III will be the new outside linebackers coach. That was announced today. Jim Leonard and April were colleagues together at the University of Wisconsin. And April also has familiarity with Buffalo. He coached the linebackers from 2015 to 2016 during the Rex Ryan tenure in Buffalo. So a familiar name coming back and working underneath Jim Leonard. And to what you're saying, Gino, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what this means for Ed Oliver. And, we'll have plenty of time between now and training camp to start talking about, how this defense evolves and how the pieces of it evolve. And when we learn what direction they go in free agency and through the draft, will they invest more in the defense this year in the draft than they last year was all defense practically. And maybe you see a little departure from that, but a handful of names that you're married to that are going to have to find their way in this scheme or fit their way into this scheme. And we'll learn more about who can benefit from the Jim Leonard defense here in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, one name that also kind of comes up, Taron Johnson. So Taron Johnson, gosh, 2 years ago, great, fantastic. Like you could say, best at his position in terms of a nickel. Yeah, they just restructured his deal. So is he, like when you say, is he going to fit? 2026 right now his cap hit is 11.4. That's kind of rough there.
Yeah, and can we say that some of these guys just might not be what they once were? Like Taron Johnson's a great player. He's not the same player now that he was 5 years ago.
He's 30.
Right.
Like, tell me defensive backs how they age in this league. It's tough.
Do you want me to share the evolution of a defensive back?
Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah,
detailed it in many instances. But some of these guys, and I'll put Bernard in there too. A whole season full of injuries, a year older, and a guy that, let's face it, has always been somewhat undersized for his position. I think there's a lot of evaluation that's going to go on with this defense. And for as much attention as was paid to it last offseason and in the draft last offseason, I think this year, get the right guys in the right place no matter what. And let's see if this defense can improve. It was a challenging season for the Bills defense. Just inconsistent throughout the course of the season, really. I mean, maybe the Carolina game was the one game where you're like, okay, they stifled them. There was nothing really there. But in pretty much every game, you can be like, what happened there? Big play here, big play there.
Well, I think of the Miami game. That cost you the division, that put you in the position where you had to go on the road in the wild card round for the first time. Since McDermott's first season, that right there to me, like how you couldn't stop the run whatsoever. So could we see like wholesale changes? I think Bernard's going to be back on this team.
Yeah.
But what kind of role will he have? I'd be stunned if Matt Milano was on this team. Same thing with Shaq Thompson.
Do you do something with safety where maybe you look at who you have on the roster and look at somebody to potentially pair back there with a Cole Bishop? There's a lot to unpack and kind of discuss when you talk about how it's going to be structured with Leonard taking over. So that's kind of exciting. And we'll keep you posted as we hear more. But the Bills coaching staff, now you have your coordinators. Joe Brady's got his coordinators in place with Carmichael and with Jim Leonard. And now we wait. I mean, Senior Bowl's done, Combine next. And we inch closer and closer to the draft in April.
Jeff Rogers is the new special teams coordinator, too, where coming over from Arizona, okay. Special teams coordinators, they just kind of move around.
Right.
It's like they're just recycled.
Right. And I always laugh because you could say, well, Arizona's special teams weren't good last year. I'm like, oh, the Bills maybe maybe the personnel that the Bills have make him a better special teams coordinator. Who knows? I mean, that to me feels like, well, you can blame the special teams coordinator when you're uncoordinated, right? When you have too many men on the field or not enough men on the field during a special teams play.
That's
you can blame them for that.
That's true.
But, if you're talking about how do they tilt the field with punting or with that comes down to the player.
Well, I would say Chris Tabor did a really nice job this year with Ray Davis on kickoff returns.
Yep.
That's going to be kind of hard to find, and part of that too was having Reggie Gilliam being your kind of plowing device there for breaking up wedges and whatnot, and he's a free agent too. So there are so many things that are up in the air with the Buffalo Bills here, but at least they've got their cornerstones now here with the coaching staff.
The Raiders are going to wait for Clint Kubiak, it would appear. So the Super Bowl is coming up on Sunday. Maybe you heard. It'll be the Seahawks and the Patriots. Raiders are going to hire Clint Kubiak after the Super Bowl because Mike LaFleur will be the new coach in Arizona.
So Mike LaFleur, did you know he was the Jets offensive coordinator, then going over to the Rams? And if he doesn't have the name LaFleur, I think just Mike Jones. Or if he doesn't land with the Rams, let's just kind of say.
It's not what you know, it's who you know,
Yeah.
right? And because the LaFleur name is part of the McVay coaching tree, he ends up in L.A., has a good season underneath Sean McVay, who's still calling plays there. It's what I've been saying all along. The NFL has a type when it comes to coaches. You're either part of the McVay coaching tree or you look like you stepped off the GQ magazine.
Okay, well, I'm going to just point this out, and I don't want this to go in the wrong direction, but I sense a storyline that's going to be coming up, and I'm looking up when does Goodell speak.
It's today.
It is today.
Yeah.
Okay. And you think he's going to be asked about the hiring practices that you had 10 openings for a head coach and 0 went to a minority candidate after years, decades of this emphasis. And when Jim Trotter asked it every year at this press conference, the NFL didn't want their own employee putting their commissioner on the spot. Okay, well, tell me about that. I'd like to know, like, how do you arrive at this? Are you because to me it seems like with the LaFleur hiring, you're hiring out of central casting sometimes. Like, you mean to tell me that there isn't a guy that might be a little pudgy or overweight? Like, Mike McCarthy got a job, but everybody else.
I'll always default to, let the best candidate win. I try to view everything through the lens of most qualified, best fit, whatever it might be. In the spirit of what you're saying, I don't know if this matters or not, but in Minnesota, a guy that did interview for a bunch of head coaching jobs, Brian Flores, today remains with the Vikings as their defensive coordinator. He's reportedly going to get $6 million a year, and that would make him the highest paid coordinator in the league. So Flores not getting the head coaching, nod this time around. And look, if you interviewed Flores, I don't know what that looks like or sounds like, but in Miami, he was let go, right? Like, it went well for a couple of years, and he was like, I don't know how these coaches talk. I don't know how, or these owners, I should say, not coaches. I don't know how these owners talk to each other, but they are thick as thieves. And there is probably something to what you're suggesting. But I would also say that their defense might just be, well, we went through the process. We interviewed a wide array of candidates, and we landed on the best candidate for our open.
Well, I think also, too, you have to be on one side of the ball. Yes, defensive coordinators do get hired, I understand, but predominantly they're offensive. So until you get more black offensive coordinators, I don't see this problem getting fixed anytime soon, Danger, because that's where you want the bright mind. Like there was a year where Byron Leftwich was like the hot coordinator,
Right.
and then all of a sudden,
Where is he now?
I don't even know.
Nobody even knows.
No.
He was up for Jacksonville. I want to say he would have returned to Jacksonville to be their head coach, and that didn't happen. And now I don't even know. Is he still the quarterbacks coach in Tampa? I have no idea where Byron Leftwich ended up. But that's an interesting point as well. It is an offensive-driven league right now. We want points. We want great quarterback play. And a lot of these guys are offensive-minded guys, including Joe Brady in Buffalo.
Well, to the point, though, of Goodell, and yes, he is going to talk a little later. Great PR agencies want to set the agenda. And for the NFL today, Danger, just to give you, that morsel. We are going to Paris.
Yeah.
Yes, the New Orleans Saints, yes.
We go to Paris, France.
Oui.
Yeah, Browns and Saints on October 25th. One of 8 international games coming up next season, the most that they've ever had in any given season. And believe us when we tell you, there will be more in the years to come.
Yeah, and so if Goodell has a chance to pivot to something like that,
This will be it.
This is going to be it. Really, what he should be asked. I don't go wherever you want to go. Go to the moon. I don't care. Are you going to get every team to play one of these? You say 8. It's going to 16, and as part of 16, are you going to go to 18 regular season games? That's what I want to know. Is he going to give you any nugget like that today?
Yeah.
Probably not.
3 games in London, 1 in Rio, 1 in Munich. So that's kind of been the standard now. You'll have in 2026 1 in Melbourne, and you have now Paris and Madrid in a longer-term deal with Madrid. So Madrid will be in the mix for years to come. Look for Rio to be televised in prime time. Melbourne is slated for a Sunday afternoon, which is actually a Monday morning in Australia. And then the London, Munich, Madrid, and Paris games all kick off Sunday morning, as we've grown accustomed to. But again, 8 international games coming to the NFL in 2026.
So, right, they've already kind of determined that the Rams are going to be going over to Australia. That is not an easy flight.
No.
Not at all. Like, I'm just wondering, if they're going to do us a favor, can they put that on Labor Day weekend? I don't know if the CBA would allow for something like that, but to me, that would make sense. Like, this is week 1, here are the Rams against their opponent, and then you come back, and it's going to give your body an extra week to recover. That's the one where I'm like, ooh, we might get some really bad football there in that time slot.
We'll see. But if you think that the NFL is settling with 8 in 2026, guess again, there will be more in the future for sure.
Well, and I think it's a fair question, too. It's like we Western Europe pony up all this money for a stadium, and you're going to see a game go elsewhere. And,
Yeah.
to Buffalo's point, and you don't think this is going to happen again, trust me, you'd be wrong about this. Just out of nowhere, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment has a press conference last summer with the Buffalo Bills, and it's at the soccer stadium up there, and all talking about developing their partnership. Are you kidding me? That's just greasing the skid there, Danger. Like, there will be a game, I predict, in Toronto for the Buffalo Bills in the next few years, which I guess if you're a real Bills fan that wants to go anywhere on the road, it's not that far a drive. But to me, it feels kind of icky that we're exporting a game just for money.
Dan Fates, 13 Wham Sports, Buffalo Plus, joining us next. We'll talk more Buffalo Bills here in the Sports Bar. Glad you're with us. Thanks for listening at 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester. But trust us, A spot the Del Monte gift card shows you've been paying attention. Purchase gift cards in-store or online at delmontespa.com. Make this Valentine's Day one to remember.
The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
You better, you bet. Black and Abdallah. One Bills Live. The headlines that matter to you. We talk sports while you work on The Fan, Rochester.
Injured? Call the Eights. Salino Law brings unmatched firepower to go toe-to-toe with the insurance company, so you can get back.
Odyssey is an equal opportunity employer.
The Fan, Rochester. Sports
update.
Bills continue to round out their coaching staff. The latest hire, Bobby April III. He is the new outside linebacker coach. He was here in 2016 under Rex Ryan. Chris Brown, the new defensive coordinator, Jim Leonard.
Brady said in a statement on the hire of Jim Leonard, quote, Jim's vision for what he wants from our defense and the personality they play with is the exact style of what I was looking for from a defensive coordinator. You could tell how smart and versatile his secondary was when we watched them on tape. He is super intelligent, a great communicator, and highly regarded in this league.
We'll get the thoughts of Dan Fates, 13 Wham and Buffalo Plus. Dan joining us next year in the Sports Bar. Sabres tonight, final week before the Olympic break. They play in Sunrise, Florida against the Panthers. Our coverage here on the Fan will begin at 7. The Amerks homestand continues on Wednesday as Belleville comes to town. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-4326. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome back into the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. We're glad you're with us this afternoon as we welcome on in Dan Fates from 13 Wham Sports and Buffalo Plus. A lot has happened since last we spoke. We have a new head coach, Dan. We have a new OC, a new DC, and a lot of questions as the Buffalo Bills head into the new league year here next month. So, Dan, where do we start? First of all, your impressions on Joe Brady and what you've observed here over the course of the last week or so.
Yeah, I thought he had a really good press conference. I think the last time we talked was a week ago, and we were kind of still trying to digest and make sense of the Pagula press conference. And in the middle of it, I'm texting Mike and Jenna saying that Joe Brady is crushing this. And again, when I said that, that doesn't mean that I am fully love the hire. It doesn't mean that Joe Brady's a great coach or will be a great head coach. None of that means anything. But it ain't worth a hill of beans. That being said, it is better to have a good introductory press conference than a bad one. The Bills don't start all of a sudden 5-0 because Joe Brady, in my opinion, had a good press conference. But I thought he checked a lot of boxes and what he wants to bring. I think this will keep a lot of the success in most of the culture. I think some of that stuff continues while there is obviously plenty of room now for change, especially defensively. But I thought it was a good press conference. I thought what he said about Sean McDermott needed to be said, and I kind of liked the vision, the accountability, energy, all of those things. I thought Joe Brady in his first, real appearance as head coach, I really thought he nailed it.
Yeah, and you mentioned, all right, what would be the change? It's on defense, and I think Bills fans are probably happy when they got that alert, hey, it's Jim Leonard. Dan, early thoughts, what kind of scheme would this be? And I would think this might lead to perhaps many personnel changes on that side of the ball. Yeah,
my first impression was, again, not a total X's and O's guy, but covered the league for 10 years, so trying to also understand under Sean McDermott, it was a 4-3 defense, and now Jim Leonard obviously has run more of a 3-4 hybrid defense. So, look, we can sit here and talk about scheme all we want, right, guys? And you can have people on that are much smarter than me to break down the, football side of it. Scheme schmeme, you need to have dudes one way or another. And you can have any scheme that you want. If you don't got the horses to run the race, then you're not going to win. So there are massive changes that need to happen on the plus side. In a weird way, there are a lot of free agents that I think the Bills can kind of let go, but they will need to address some things when it comes to outside linebackers that they may need, some edge rushers they need, all those kind of things. But, yeah, it is exciting to know that, Jim Leonard brings a new voice in that room. I think it'll be a change. But, again, I think so many people think of, it's a 3-4 defense. Sean McDermott's defense was a 4-3, but they also ran a lot of nickel out of that. So you're really only in base. It's the one thing I want to make sure to get across people. You may only see 3 down linemen on 25% of the snaps. Even the teams Pittsburgh runs a 3-4 and all these things. It's not like the Bills are going to do that 75% of their defensive snaps next year. Defense is a lot about reacting to what the offensive personnel is. Hence why Sean McDermott a lot of times had Taron Johnson on the field instead of another linebacker. That obviously can change. That's all big X's and O's into the weeds. Jim Leonard is viewed as a guy that is a young, up-and-coming, smart defensive coordinator who had opportunities with the LA Chargers, as well as with the Baltimore Ravens, and he picks Buffalo. That's an encouraging sign. You want coaches that have options, you want coordinators and coaches that have options. You don't want, what did Mike Tomlin say? We don't want hostages. We want volunteers. This looks like a nice change. A guy coming back knows what the culture is in Buffalo, knows what the team means and what they want their identity to be. So I really do like the hire of Jim Leonhard.
So when do we get a chance to learn more about these coordinators, Dan? Are they going to speak to the media anytime, have you heard, or are we waiting until OTAs or waiting until the new league year to be able to actually ask questions and pick the brains of these guys?
That's a great question because I think they don't speak until OTAs and minicamps, because I remember when Brady was fully in and Babbage got Brady and Babbage kind of came in, we were asking to talk to them at the Combine, and I don't believe we got an opportunity to. So I don't think we will hear from them necessarily anytime soon. I'm sure when Mike and I are at the Combine, we'll try and reach out and meet up with them and kind of pick their brains. But Joe Brady obviously released a statement already on both hirings. The Pete Carmichael one, guys, to me, I like in the sense of a vet and somebody that has kind of been through the highs and lows of a high-profile job as an offensive coordinator under Sean Payton, works with Drew Brees, all those things. Like, I was kind of joking around the idea of, like, on Buffalo Plus of, like, would Brady bring on Coach O for something? Meaning in the sense of a guy that has gone through success, failures, and somebody that can be like, hey, man, it's not as bad as you think, or, hey, this isn't as good as we think it is. Some type of guy to have that perspective, and I think that's what Carmichael will bring. 15 years experience as an offensive coordinator with New Orleans, won a Super Bowl, worked with obviously a Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame coordinator. I think that is a good hire to have an adult be in the room when Brady can't be.
Well, that's good. But on the other side of the ball, do they need to get somebody that is working underneath or a senior advisor here? Because, yes, we're all excited about Leonhard, but number one, with new personnel, new this, we got to expect some growing pains, I would think, Dan.
Sure.
And on top of that, it's not like Joe Brady will be this kind of sounding board when it comes to that side of the ball. Should we expect somebody that maybe has some cachet, some veteran presence on that coaching staff?
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, you look at what the Jaguars just did. First-year head coach, first-year defensive coordinator, first-year offensive coordinator, and that worked out pretty well for them. So I think that, like we had talked about, like the thoughts of retreads being this scarlet letter on coaches and coordinators, and I think the direction they want to go with is a little bit younger, a little bit newer, and I think that's okay. I don't know exactly where else, you want to find some more, special teams coordinator has been around before as well. So I think you're piecing it together. But again, I thought that if you were going to give the keys to a young first-time head coach, it's sink or swim. You're not putting half your chips in the middle of the pot and then seeing what happens so you can pull them back later. Like, this is going to be Joe Brady and Brandon Beane's decisions and Terry Pagula's, and if it works out, you're going to find out sooner rather than later, because we talk about, I don't like window talk with Josh Allen and all these kind of things, but you went in this direction and you might as well go all in with it and not dip your toe.
We learned late last week what the range for the new salary cap will be, Dan, and I know your team.
Did the salary cap go up?
I was going to say I know your team's salary cap isn't real. So I guess if the salary cap was real, what would be some of the first moves Brandon Beane should make here when we start addressing this roster in 2026?
Yeah, I think we got to figure out. I think Beane's got to figure out a little bit of this offensive line. I think David Edwards has priced himself maybe out of Buffalo, and you kind of. I think Connor McGovern would be a great guy to re-sign at a reasonable cost. He's still, I think, only 30 years old. I think there's still. You've seen the improvement, and obviously having that steady force in front of Josh Allen, I think is big. You got to try and figure out something to do with Dawson Knox's contract. I can see that being restructured, maybe an extension to kind of lessen the cap hit this year. But then there will be decisions on Taron Johnson, some of the other guys. And look, I'm curious to see the narrative as being how much does he want to improve this roster? And I know that's a weird way of saying it, but look, Terry Pagula and Brandon Beane kind of said, like, we have a great roster and we had good coaches, and they wanted to make a change. Well, if the roster was so great, how much do they change? Because the narrative kind of seems to be, well, Sean McDermott was the voice that we wanted to get out, and we wanted the voice inside the building of Joe Brady to be a little bit louder. So they have decisions that need to be made. You got to think about a safety. You're going to have to think about in free agency, getting linebackers. And obviously we have the draft and the wide receiver room that obviously needs to be improved. So there's a lot of work to do. On the plus side, the salary cap is not real. It will go up again next year, surprisingly. And you can always restructure a Dion deal or a Josh deal or anything like that to, press the piggy bank and shake more money out of it. So this is when, it was kind of like, when does Brady figure out his coaching staff? He said he wasn't in a rush, and then he had all three coordinators within 48 hours after his press conference. So now that that's the case, and he's kind of rounding out the rest of his coaching staff, his position coaches, we will switch now into free agency as well as draft talk.
Yeah, Dan, on that offensive line, is that such a bad thing if there are some changes? 40 times Josh Allen sacked this year, a career high. Took a lot more hits in the run game, and it's a tough thing to kind of diagnose, right? Like, was it the line? Is it Allen not doing what he's supposed to? Is he holding on to the ball a little bit too long? I mean, the Houston game being the crown example of, the answer is all the above there when you're sacked 8 times. But again, are we overrating the Bills' offensive line? Yes, they were number 1 in rushing. I get that. But you can't have Josh Allen take that sort of beating.
No, and I think Mike always jokes around about finding reasons, not excuses, right? Like, don't make excuses for it, but let's try and figure out why Josh Allen was sacked 40 times. And I go back to the Houston game, Spencer Brown's trying to block Will Anderson with one arm. That's not a great matchup. And they kind of got, run over in that game. But I really do look at it as, where are the easy buttons for Josh? Matt Stafford doesn't have the best offensive line. I think the Bills' offensive line is still a top 3 offensive line this year. But when Josh has to hold the ball for so long and he's trying to find things to get open, there has caused problems. So I look at it so much more as get wide receivers that can get open quicker and can separate quicker. But I've always been team wide receiver, team playmakers, because I still do believe in this offensive line. I still believe in Dion and Spencer Brown at the tackles, and you're going to have to pay, Osiris Torrance, because he's been, he's a really good up and coming guard. So I do think that was so much more on Josh at times and the lack of wide receivers, and at times just the lack of continuity with the wide receivers, because they talked about that ad nauseum. Even, week 16, 17. They're still saying, well, we're still trying to figure out the best combination of wide receivers. That's not a great success to have a efficient passing game, which the Bills were, average in that case. So I think getting wide receivers and talented players on the outside can make life a lot easier for the offensive line. It's just like when you look at a defense, are sacks all on the defensive line, or does it help when the corners can cover longer? Or, you can hide some corners that aren't great because they don't have to cover for that long because the D-line gets to them. So all of that stuff, and I know that's a little coach speak, but it really is a whole bunch of factors that play into why Josh Allen was getting sacked so much.
Dan, when we look at the long list of free agents coming up this offseason for the Buffalo Bills, I'm curious as to which players on this list you could see coming back and maybe being a part of the Joe Brady offense or defense. And I'm just going to give you names, and we can do rapid fire here. Is Reggie Gilliam back?
Yes.
Is Trey White back?
Ooh. I'll say yes, but it would have to be – I think Trey's earned a decent paycheck back again on the open market. I think he proved that he had overcome for those injuries and played really well. He could probably be a starter somewhere, and I don't know where the Bills feel about Max Hairston, and that's kind of the big question mark. Is you spend, again, another first-round pick for a guy heading into his second year, and are you going to say, are we going to go into training camp going, well, it's an open competition for cornerback number 2, and while you can, pitch Trey on stay in Buffalo, be you with us, and all these kind of things, would he want to – now, look, you need 3 corners, definitely. If anything, we've seen that. Needing depth at that position, I just wonder if Trey – how much the market will dictate for Trey, because obviously he has played his best football in Buffalo.
One of the youngest guys on the list of free agents for the Buffalo Bills, wide receiver Gabe Davis. Is he back?
No.
What about Matt Milano?
That's an interesting one, because could he be that outside linebacker in a 3-4? Is that something that Jim Leonard would like to have? Look, they're going to have to get bigger at linebacker. And that my first question was, where does that fit into Terrell Bernard down the line? You know, obviously these kind of things, and that's schematically and what the way the Bills view it. Milano played better this year than in years past. Was that enough to earn him a bigger payday somewhere else, or does he want to stay in Buffalo? That one is legitimately, in my opinion, 50-50.
What about Epinesa?
No, I think they want change. And I think that running it back at a cost-efficient defensive end wouldn't be the change that they would need. If they're talking about moving things around defensively, I think they need to improve Epinesa's position.
And when Jim Leonard looks at the play of Cam Lewis, what does he see? Is Cam Lewis on this roster next year?
Yeah, I think the versatility is huge with Cam, obviously, with all that he can do. And if Jim wants to run this hybrid 3-4 and kind of do all these different things, Cam has shown that he can be valuable in a lot of different ways.
I got one for you, and this would be, oh my gosh, the Bills didn't bring him back. Damar Hamlin.
I will say he's not back. I can see him going to Pittsburgh. I can see him going elsewhere. I think that, unfortunately, the injury this year, it gave other guys a chance. It gave Paul Bishop a big opportunity to succeed. The loss of Taylor Rapp, kind of things like that. I still think they want to raise the floor if possible at the safety position. I don't think Jordan Poyer's back. I don't think Damar Hamlin's back. Taylor Rapp's not back. I think they're going to have to address that position in free agency and in the draft.
And one more for you, because this player will be 33 next time, and he was involved in the controversial play. But as a wide receiver 5 or 6, do you give Brandon Cooks a shot?
Mike is really high on Brandon Cooks. Literally, we're on the flight back from Denver, and he's like, I can see him coming back. He was the guy that showed that he can still separate and still get open. And I think that's fair. I think he's proven that he can still be a wide receiver 4 in the NFL, but I think the Bills should strive for better. I really do. And again, if there's one thing we've learned, and I go back to all the way back to the WGR press conference with Bean and Jeremy and Joe, and Jeremy always stressed to me, and I thought it made perfect sense, is that drafting wide receivers is good business. Like, we've seen that from signing Curtis Samuel and signing Josh Palmer and these guys, and the production you get out of them compared to the price you're paying for them. And while the salary cap isn't real, I think they need to spend that money elsewhere, especially defensively, and finding some dogs and maybe trading for a guy like, I don't know, Max Crosby, that you could get some cheap labor by drafting a wide receiver before the 7th round, and maybe actually be able to do exactly what Curtis Samuel or Elijah Moore or some of these guys that you've paid way more than you would pay a rookie wide receiver. And I think that's the route they have to go. And I know I've said it before, I'm ready to get my heart broken again, but they need to take multiple swings in the draft to get younger and cheaper and better at the wide receiver position.
All right. Well, it sounds like, I mean, there's no way that anybody would trade for him based on the value that has been presented for Keon Coleman, but it sure sounds like both Brady and Josh Allen did their best to pump up the tires of Keon last week.
Yeah, they did, a little bit of damage control after, Terry Pagula said that. And Joe Brady was, said afterwards, I was the guy that was banging on the table for Keon. And he said he will be on the team next year. He said this is the best thing that could ever happen to him, was the fact that Joe Brady becoming the head coach. Obviously, you would say that, right? Like, there wouldn't be any value or logic to saying, yeah, we're trading Keon Coleman or we're going to cut him. Like, that wouldn't help anything. It does not mean that Keon is starting week 1. It does not mean he's on the roster through training camp. But the problem is, and we kind of talked about in Buffalo Plus, that Keon's cheap. He's a cheap wide receiver right now compared to the grand scheme of the league. So I think that as for right now, Keon will stay in Buffalo, but there is nothing given and nothing has been earned by Keon Coleman.
Can we go back to Max Crosby? Because everybody's like, what? Max Crosby? He tweeted out something cryptic. It is that time of year. And I go back to this time last year, whether it was the guy in Cleveland or the guy in Dallas.
Yep.
Okay, well, Crosby was part of that conversation. And just looking up his contract right now, okay, the Raiders will incur a $35 million cap hit. His base this year is $30 million. He's not under contract past 2027. You could give him a new deal, Dan, but I just come back to, would the Raiders actually move? I mean, these guys are rare to find here.
Yeah, they're rare to find. I wonder how fractured that relationship is in Vegas with Crosby. Obviously, he was very adamant and very upset by the fact that they pretty much shut him down the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, didn't want him to play. He was adamant that he's playing. That's the kind of dog that he is. He's a guy that his first few years in the league played in a 3-4 system, kind of like a guy like TJ Watt that can play on the outside and be just an absolute wrecker. So I will continue to bang the drum that the Bills trade for a edge rusher and draft a wide receiver in my dream scenario for the Bills offseason this year, with my biggest dream being Max Crosby.
Tell me and everybody what you, Mike, and Jen are working at Buffalo Plus, Dan, that we can check out this week.
Yeah, I think last week we had a video up every single day, between McDermott's firing to Brady being hired to Brady's press conference to I did a video on Saturday, my best to explain what Jim Leonard's defense could be and the system of a 3-4 and how that could play out. But again, it comes down to players. So we've got all that content. Mike, Jen, and myself are just about to hop in the podcast studio, do a video right now about what's next, what's moving forward now that the coaching staff is set, and then all of that content, and as well as Mike and I will be heading all week in Indy for the NFL Combine, so we have plenty of content February 23rd through the 26th.
I realized I had it real easy when it came to dealing with Braves fans like yourself, because this time last year it's Shohei Ohtani hitting home runs in the month of April and everything else. You must be excited, Dan, here as we're getting your pitchers and catchers here.
Absolutely. Braves are back, minus the fact that their shortstop that they signed slipped on ice in Korea and tore tendons in his middle finger. But that's just the way that the Braves have been going the last year. I felt like a Mets fan deep down.
On that note.
That was an insult. That was a ricochet shot to Mets fans.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah,
Dan, I can't hang up on you.
No, okay. Dan, appreciate the time as always, but we'll talk again soon.
Do you guys have any more players? Do you have enough players to field the team yet?
Yeah, that guy Bo Bichette's pretty good. Catalana might be kind of bummed that he didn't go to Philly. We got
So you got 3 players, right? You got 3.
No, Vientos will move over to first. Bichette is third.
Vientos,
yeah,
that's stud. Yeah. All right, man.
Thanks,
have a good
Dan.
one, guys.
See ya. There's Dan Fates, 13 Web Sports, Buffalo Plus, and Braves fan.
Mm-hmm. It's that time of year.
It is.
Are we really excited about baseball, or are we just excited about green grass?
Oh, I watched the Farmers.
Of course you did.
Saturday and Sunday. Justin Rose, just watching green grass, blue skies, short sleeves. I'm like, sign me up. Why am I not in San Diego? Right? Where's Tim? Where's my buddy Tim?
Tim in San Diego.
We want Tim in San Diego. Make an appearance, man. That was all I wanted to see. I'm ready. I'm absolutely ready. Appreciate Dan stopping by the sports bar. Always good to get his insight as the Bills coaching staff is rounding out nicely. Next hour, we go to the land of 10,000 locks.
Yeah.
We go to Thor Nystrom, Score North. Love catching up with Thor, especially when the Senior Bowl is happening and it has happened. We'll get Thor's takeaways from last week's festivities in Mobile, and he is in Minneapolis. We can talk about what's gone on here with the Vikings over the last few days.
That is that's quite a team there, quite a mess that they have in a division that's actually pretty good. Anthony Weaver didn't get the job for Arizona. He landed in a good spot. He
goes back to Baltimore. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. I like that guy. I like Weaver. I mean, he's not in Arizona. He doesn't get that job, but he ends up going back to Baltimore, and I think that defense will will look good because of it. We'll talk about speaking of defense. We'll talk about that deal that Flores got in Minneapolis as well. Thor Nystrom joining us here in the 4 o'clock hour. You can join us anytime. 866-4FAN is our phone number. 585-866-4326.
You're listening to
And you know why we are the Fan Rochester.
WROC AM, WBEE HD2 Rochester. And streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester. An Odyssey sports station.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills continue to round out their coaching staff. Bobby April III, the new outside linebacker coach, he was here under Rex Ryan in 2015 and 2016. Jeff Rogers, the new special teams coordinator. Chris Brown with more.
Rodgers has almost 25 years of NFL coaching experience, including 21 years coaching special teams in the NFL. I'm glad that a first-time head coach has a veteran OC and a veteran special teams coach and an up-and-coming defensive coordinator.
Davis Webb, meanwhile, gets promoted to offensive coordinator in Denver. Sabres tonight. They play in Florida against the Panthers. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock here on the Fan Rochester. Just 3 games left before the Olympic break. Amherst are home Wednesday night against Belleville. Syracuse basketball tonight playing at number 14, North Carolina. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, the Fan Rochester.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Welcome back into the Sports Bar. Brand new sports week as we lead up to Super Sunday. It's the Patriots. It's the Seahawks. We're going to try and talk about it as little as possible. But through the course of the week, I'm sure it'll come up. It is the biggest stage for football, obviously. We do have some news as we start our second hour here, Gino, that one of the names that we were familiar with from the Bills' head coaching search has gotten the promotion that we all kind of thought he was going to get.
Yeah, I thought maybe Davis Webb would have been somebody ideal for Buffalo, knowing he has that relationship with Josh Allen. Maybe they realized it wasn't going to happen after Denver, the preemptive strike where they blew out their offensive coordinator, making sure Davis Webb didn't get out the door. So they made sure that they did their interviews today. Davis Webb getting promoted there is, of course, Carmichael is over now in Buffalo. He was kind of in a senior advisory role. Kind of odd, though, too. Like, you're taking 2 guys off of Denver's staff with Sean Payton that are now coming to Buffalo, one being Leonard, the other being Carmichael to be your coordinators there. Another story that's coming over here, Danger, and is this something or is it a nothing? The Patriots are going to list Drake May as questionable for the Super Bowl. Hey, now, head coach Mike Vrabel last week says he's not worried about May's throwing shoulder. Well, if that's the case, why you're listening? He also had an illness last week, apparently.
Right. I will say this. I mean, there's no way he's not playing. Of course he's going to play. But the idea that he can't throw, I would listen to. We didn't really see him throw that much in the postseason. Like, he hurt that shoulder in the Denver game as well. And the guy took a lot of sacks in the postseason. Like, Drake May's postseason isn't trending in the right direction.
Well, here's what it's done to the betting line this afternoon. Nothing.
Oh.
Seattle remains a 4.5-point favorite, over under 45.5, which that's kind of low for a Super Bowl. It really is.
It wouldn't surprise me if it's a low-scoring affair. I mean, if you think historically, and I know that the Patriots Super Bowls of yore are different than what we would expect to see with Mike Vrabel as head coach, but I think this is true for a lot of postseason games where you kind of see him get off to a slow start, or it's just about figuring out and adjusting in the moment. And a low-scoring Super Bowl, with these 2 defenses, that wouldn't surprise me at all. But May's shoulder, how often is he throwing it on Sunday? I'm curious about that because we haven't really seen him do a lot of that. Can he throw? Is that shoulder bothering him so much that he can't throw? I have a feeling it's going to be just fine. It's going to end up being a giant Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
Okay, you're sick on a Friday. Your shoulder's sore. It's the Super Bowl you're playing, and you're going to play at the best ability you can possibly play.
Yeah, I mean, but should they rephrase like how this is, how these designations are? Because questionable, like he's not 100%. Isn't that kind of what they're really saying? Like Josh Allen wasn't listed as questionable for any of these games. He appeared on the injury report just kind of foot, and then you hear, oh, yeah, he had a broken bone in his foot.
Right, and they never reported it. I mean, like, you could imagine, well, they did report it, right? He was
Just
during
a
the week.
foot, yeah.
During the week, it was always a foot injury that
Yeah.
made him, like, limited or whatever. But, yeah, I think when you're talking about how much is invested in gambling, that at some point somebody might say something about how these injuries are being reported and how accurate these injury reports really are. You know, in the spirit of, you know, the integrity of the game, yeah, you might want to fully disclose those injuries.
I think the most egregious one from recent years was when Arthur Smith kind of left Bijan Robinson off. Didn't put him on the injury report whatsoever, and then just didn't play because he was sick. Oh, you might want to have told everybody, particularly with fantasy lineups. It's that time where I think, okay, we're just kind of itching to get to the kind of the game. If you were flipping around yesterday, like, well, hey, where did the Pro Bowl go? Oh no, that's the made-for-TV event tomorrow night. And if you're watching anything on ESPN today, you might see Deion Dawkins come across your screen because while the Pro Bowl games are going on, today was Pro Bowl Media Day in the same spot out in Northern California, out in Santa Clara. It's one of those events, Danger, that I swear to you, I'm not going to make time for tomorrow night.
You know, I say that about a lot of things in the world of sports because you just see them and it's like, oh, that's a made-for-TV event, or that's just a promotion, or that's a sideshow, whatever it might be. And I'm having a little bit of remorse. I wish I would have watched the Stadium Series last night in Tampa because that was, by all the highlights I saw, that was one hell of a game.
And it's the NHL game of the year. It really was because a lot went into it. And I'll just try to bullet point it for you here. First, like you saw the Lightning players go in cosplay. They're all dressed up as Buccaneer football players with the Buccaneer Bruce creamsicle.
I saw the walk-in, and I'm like, I see guys dressed as pirates. I see guys dressed as Buccaneers. I don't know what's going. John Cooper looks like he owns a speakeasy behind the bench for Tampa Bay.
Yeah. So I'll get to that at the end here. So okay. Game on. It's a clear night, and there's no problems with the ice, and Boston jumps out to a 4-goal lead, and you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a quick night here, right? It's 5-2, and there's a kind of a pile-up in front of the Boston net, and Swayman takes some liberties, right? He's the goalie for Boston. And, okay, well, who better to police that than the Tampa goaltender himself? So, for the first time in an outdoor game, we had a goalie fight. And the thing that happened here was Vasilevsky kicked the crap out of Swayman.
Yep.
And that fired up the Tampa crowd. Yep. That fired up the team. And Tampa ends up tying this at 5. So, we go to overtime, and it's, in their own zone, it's a breakout. And it's a really nice goal. Like pass, goal, pass, and he puts his arms up into the air. Wait a second. Well, the official is signaling penalty. Like, penalty for what? That happened at the other end of the ice. Like, it's things like that that make you say, wait a second here. Like, why wasn't that blown dead at the other end of the ice?
Yeah, possession.
Yeah, possession. As soon as you have possession, the play is blown dead. It's hockey 101. So the goal doesn't count. Ends up going to the shootout. Tampa ends up winning. As you mentioned, John Cooper, looking like he's some cigar factory owner, walks off with a white suit, the red shirt, the white hat, and he's smoking a cigar on the bench as he's heading off the ice.
Vanna Moe, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning.
That's what the sport needs. They need a little bit of flair. You may say, oh, it's dumb that they're dressing up as Buccaneer players. Oh, look at that head coach. You can't take him seriously. No. It was a slow night in the sports calendar. I'm thinking, okay, they're only giving us 3 games. That's a game. And that's a team, Tampa. And, hey, for the Sabres, this is the first time we're going to say, okay, good. Boston didn't get the 2 points here.
Yeah. Hey, tonight's important, right? They got to get tonight down there in Sunrise. Just to see him turn it around and prove like we don't want a schneid. We don't want them to get on a schneid. We want another win here. Eliminate the exercise of demons from Saturday night. That was tough. Watching Montreal come back and get that win in a barn that was loaded with Canadian fans.
That's tough. That really is tough. And Toronto's going to be coming in next month. I mean, at what point if you're a Sabre fan, do you say, that's enough? I can make more money off of this, and maybe I can, afford to go to 2 dinners here as compared to go 1 hockey game. I get it. You're making those value judgments, but at what point do you actually want to support your team? Because that is not helping anything when your arena gets overrun like that.
That was rough. For the Buffalo Bills, we learned on Friday that Pete Carmichael Jr. would be the new offensive coordinator. If you missed it, Joe Brady sharing his thoughts on the hire.
Pete has been, I said yesterday I don't want a lot of Joe Brady's, and Pete is not Joe Brady. And I said I wasn't going to hire friends. Pete is a guy that I've always looked up to because he doesn't get a lot of credit for a lot of the success that they had in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. But Pete was an integral piece for I don't know if they would have been able to do what they did without Pete. Having a guy that I trust, I can't be in the offense, or I'm not the offensive coordinator anymore. I can't be in there every single moment of the day. And now I have an offensive coordinator that also understands, and it's going to be a whole staff, but understands what that looks like. He's done that for so many years where I can trust that, hey, when I'm not in there, that room's going to keep moving along. Right. And then he also understands the vision that I have and what it looks like. And he's as brilliant as they come. And I'm so excited I get to work with him.
So that was Friday afternoon. What I love about that is right out of the gate, he addresses the 2 things that we were critical of, right?
Yeah, you address here's the objection, and you diffuse everything. And he said this as a press conference. I don't want yes men. I don't want Joe Brady Jr.'s running around here. Well, that kind of came across as that, did it not? And he's laying out the reasons why it wasn't. Okay.
Yeah, I like that he did that up front. So that was Friday, Pete Carmichael. Then over the weekend, we learned that Jim Leonhard would be the new defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, and Brownie and Tasker had some thoughts on that earlier today on One Bills Live.
He started out as a rookie free agent with the Bills, ended up playing 10 years in the NFL. That same perseverance and mindset have carried over into his coaching career. We couldn't be happier to get him back to Buffalo.
Jim's was one of those guys, and told this story where we heard about him from Barry Alvarez back in Wisconsin before he even graduated. He ended up getting signed by a rookie free agent, as you just heard. Played for 10 years, and everywhere he went, he was impressive. And he's been one of those guys from the jump who's been like, wow, that guy's going to be a coach. That guy's going to be a coach. That guy's going to be a coach. And certainly he's turned into a really good one.
Steve says this all the time. Smart guys play a long time in the NFL. Leonard's a smart guy.
Yeah, Leonhard, he couldn't look less like a pro athlete unless he was me. He's just one of those guys who just did it with wit and guile and perseverance, and he helped a lot of his teammates play better. Coaches love that.
Underrated as a punt returner, too.
And he's a good decision maker. Yeah. That's how it works, man. He's a good decision maker. So glad to have him back here in Buffalo. Glad to have him back.
I like Jim Leonhard, the player at Danger. I remember him in Baltimore. I remember a little time with the Bills. He bounced around. Mm-hmm. Can you find another Jim Leonhard to pair right next to Cole Bishop? Because that's a glaring need, in my opinion, on this team. If you have that, and Maxwell Harrison, I'm saying a lot of ifs there, but you can have a secondary that you didn't have this year in terms of making sure nothing gets behind it.
I like that the guy that everybody kind of identified as that would be a good guy for us is the guy that we got. I like that he had options. He could have gone other places, but he chose Buffalo. I like that as well. I think that speaks well to what Joe Brady is trying to build here with his new staff. And then, of course, the other names that are being added to the staff as well. Less exciting than your coordinators, but certainly, the staff is, as they say, rounding out nicely here for Joe Brady.
You ever experienced an earthquake?
Whenever there's been an earthquake in our area where people, oh my God, did you feel no? I did not feel.
I always miss out, and I think half the people that said I felt it are lying to you, right? And honestly, I have a very good friend that lives in Southern California, and I don't think I want to. I think that's a life experience that I don't really need to share. Why am I bringing this up? 4.2 magnitude earthquake, San Ramon, which is 32.5 miles north of Levi's Stadium. That happened today. That's kind of freaky, Danger, because we think of earthquakes and pro sporting events. Of course, 1989 World Series between the Giants and A's, and that shut down the World Series for, I think it was 2 weeks. This kind of fell into the category of some people felt it, some people did not.
Yeah, it's a tremor, right?
Yeah.
It's not, but does a tremor lead to something bigger? These are the things that there are smarter people than I that can tell you more about that. But, what you're saying, I immediately when you hear earthquake and massive sporting event, 89 is the first thing that pops in your head. And we forget, I mean, as much as that impacted the World Series, how impacted that whole region was from those devastating earthquakes. That was terrible.
It was, and that was Candlestick Park, they built this. By the way, Levi Stadium in the total wrong place if you know the Bay Area geography. But it was a preseason game in 2014 between the Niners and the Chargers where they had a 6-0 earthquake, and that was a few hours before the game. Nothing happened.
Oh, really?
Stadium was fine. Game went on. People were like, oh, okay, and life continued.
Yeah, I mean, I guess our lake effect snow is their earthquake, right? I mean, like you just kind of deal with it. That has the potential to be far more devastating, obviously. But I saw that, and I'm like, well, that sounds about right because it is California, and they're on a fault line, and it'll probably happen from time to time.
I said 2 weeks, 10 days later, the 89 World Series, and that was danger comment incoming. That was a 6.9 magnitude earthquake back in 1989.
I'm not going to say it because that was not a nice earthquake. It was not a nice earthquake.
No.
We're going to be joined by Thor Nystrom. Thor, our superhero of the spread. Man, he's got his finger on the pulse of the NFL draft. He was in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, not for the actual game, but for the parts of it that matter, the one-on-one sessions, the practices, get a good look up close at some of the prospects that we're going to be talking about here for the Buffalo Bills and all the other teams in the NFL.
They would take a phone call on Justin Jefferson's availability, would they?
He did have some words, did he not?
Yeah, I mean, it's that time of year. Like, could we trade for, by we, meaning your favorite team? Could we trade for Max Crosby? Could you trade for perhaps JJ?
All right. We'll dive into it a little bit here with Thor Nystrom, who joins us next. Stay in the fan.
update.
Bills working to fill out the coaching staff. Here is Bobby April III, the new outside linebacker coach. New, but coming back to Buffalo. He was here in 2015-2016 under Rex Ryan. Jeff Rogers, the special teams coach. Chris Brown on the new defensive coordinator, Jim Leonard.
Brady said in a statement on the hire of Jim Leonard, quote, Jim's vision for what he wants from our defense and the personality they play with is the exact style of what I was looking for from a defensive coordinator. You could tell how smart and versatile his secondary was when we watched them on tape. He is super intelligent, a great communicator, and highly regarded in this league.
Davis Webb, meanwhile, getting promoted to offensive coordinator in Denver. Sabres hockey tonight here on The Fan. The team playing in Florida. Amherst home Wednesday against Belleville. Syracuse basketball tonight playing at number 14, North Carolina. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Bobby April III is reported to be the team's next outside linebackers coach. April has a prior working relationship with Jim Leonard as the two coached together at the University of Wisconsin for 5 seasons. Prior to that, he coached for 2 seasons with the Bills as a linebackers coach. And yes, he is the son of former Bills special teams coordinator Bobby April, who won 2 special teams coordinator coach of the year awards as a Bills coach. He spent his last 3 years at Stanford coaching there as a linebackers coach or defensive coordinator, maybe. In any event, he was at Stanford the last 3 years.
There's Chris Brown earlier today, One Bills Live, telling us more about Bobby April III, new outside linebackers coach for the Buffalo Bills. We are looking back at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. It's in our rear-view mirror as we get closer to the Combine and, of course, April's NFL Draft. When we talk draft, when we talk college prospects, we always reach out to Thor, our superhero of the spread, Thor Nystrom at Score North in the land of 10,000 legs, and we certainly want to talk about what's going on with the Vikings there as well. But Thor, always good to have you on, and I know you've got a lot of thoughts based on what you probably just saw last week in Mobile.
Always good to talk to you, boys. Yeah, excited to talk about some Senior Bowl.
Thor, you're there for the game, not for the game, but for the week, the practices, the interviews here. And the headline story there about Garrett Nussmeier, LSU, did a good job. How much did he help himself here? Where would you think he is slotted here in terms of the draft?
He helped himself a ton. You know, you think about this quarterback class, it's a bad one. You know, I mean, after you get by Mendoza, you're out of sure things right there. Ty Simpson, you know, we don't know if he's going to be end of first round or early second round, but the quarterbacks after that, it just falls off so quickly. Nussmeier can get himself back up to being a top 3-4 drafted quarterback in this class, and who knows, maybe even begin to make an argument against Ty Simpson with a big process. If you look at Nussmeier's 2024 film and then you just sort of ignore what happened last season, absolutely, and probably should be QB2 in this class. It's just last season he was battling through injuries from the start. Brian Kelly had an awkward press conference in August where he was like, no, Garrett didn't tear his ACL. He has essentially a degenerative knee condition that he deals with like all the time. The medicals are going to be huge for Nussmeier next month, later this month at the NFL Combine. That's going to be the most important part of his evaluation. They need to get into that knee and see how bad that thing is. A couple of years ago, that's why Carson Strong went undrafted. When he came into the process, everyone thought he was going to be a second-round pick. He goes undrafted because of a degenerative knee condition. Nussmeier, because he was playing through that knee thing, he started to modify the way he was throwing during the fall. Then he picks up an injury to his core, and he really should have shut it down at that point. But he tried to play through that too. And by the end of the year, it was just really, really bad. He talked to us about how the last 2 weeks leading up to the Senior Bowl, he basically had to learn the foundations, the mechanics, redo them from the ground up because of the bad habits he picked up playing through the injuries. But he looks a lot better now. As the week went on, you saw him sort of knocking off the rust is the way that I would put it. But by Thursday, he was looking a lot better. The game, he obviously looked pretty sharp. So he knocked that rust off. He seems a lot more confident. He seems healthier. It's just what is the medicals going to say later this month? That's going to determine where he ends up going.
Another senior that was down there. And look, Vanderbilt, fun story. He was a Heisman finalist. What kind of week did Diego Pavia have, and what kind of prospect is he, in your opinion, Thor?
I would say up and down. He showed some decent accuracy and placement earlier on, and he's the scrambler guy, and so he showed that a little bit. But you see the physical limitations pretty clearly out there. You get later into the week, and there's more of the team drills, and on the reps where there was quick interior pressure, especially, it's like a tidal wave washing over Diego Pavia. He's 5'9" and 3/4. He has a hard time seeing over the line of scrimmage, like legitimate, and so it's like you have to move the puck, you have to get outside of that. But especially with that quick pressure, it would just blow plays up for him, and then you saw the scrambling right away. I'm concerned about those physical limitations. That's my issue with his profile there. And when you've had quarterbacks at those dimensions, it's usually guys you want in the building. And I wonder with Pavia, with some of the way that he talks with the media, certain stuff like that, the way he reacted to losing the Heisman, the social media stuff. If a team is going to be invested in keeping him around when there's not ceiling there, would you pick him as a developmental guy over a 6'4" quiet, pocket passer? That's what you're sort of wondering there. I think Pavia, what he ends up being, is a really good player in the CFL or the USFL or whatever. The NFL projection, I don't think he's going to get drafted. He'll be in a camp over the summer, but yeah, I'm not sure if he hangs around on a roster.
Thor, looking at this through the lens of the Buffalo Bills, we've got a new defensive coordinator, and I think maybe there's an opportunity when you watch some of the one-on-one drills through the course of the week, man, you see some defenders absolutely eating all week long. Were there any standouts for the week of practice that you saw on the defensive line, edge rushers, and conversely on the offensive line, guys that held their own against that?
Yeah, I know, y'all in thinking about the draft needs up front, certainly, be front and center there. Lee Hunter was awesome. The Texas Tech interior defensive lineman, 6'3", 330 pounds, and he is so quick. It's a big fella that is looking to knife into the backfield and attack gaps and then get back there and cause disruption. Like, it's not a Parker, like, occupier type guy, for the run defense or whatever. And Lee Hunter was causing a bunch of havoc, which is what he always does. Danger, I know, as a old Vikings fan, you'll get a kick out of this. I heard a comp of him to Pat Williams, which was like, oh yeah, the big fellow with the really quick feet there. So Lee Hunter would definitely be one. The edge rushers, there was plenty of guys out there. Even though we didn't get Ruben Bain, we didn't get David Bailey. T.J. Parker showed up to the event. He was really good. He was impressing people. Zion Young, a couple other guys like deeper down that were impressing. Derek Moore from Michigan is a really good player. I talked to a coach that coached him back in the day that was so bullish on Derek Moore and just the work ethic and stuff behind the scenes. But he's a really, really talented edge rusher from Michigan who's going to test really well as well. So that's a guy that I would keep an eye on during the process as well. But yeah, there was a whole bunch of the interior defensive line and the edge rushing group were some of the best position units we had out there. So there was a lot of interesting guys.
Thor Nystrom, our guest here in the Sports Bar. And we have you on annually, Thor, for these conversations, in terms of the lens looking through the Buffalo Bills. Hey, they need wide receivers, and we talk about the wide receivers, and then it doesn't happen. So that's the disclaimer up front here that the Bills are usually averse to drafting wide receivers, but they do have a need, a glaring need. Tell me about your thoughts on the week that Malachi Fields had, and at the end of the first round, would that be considered a reach? Your thoughts on Fields?
He's going to have to test just awesome for that to become a discussion. It's possible. I see him more as a day two guy, but yeah, he's coming off of a great week. He was definitely one of the biggest risers there. Malachi Fields, we saw him do it at Virginia earlier in his career. Then he goes to Notre Dame, and obviously, with their schedule this year, he did a really good job there. But at this event, they had a hard time finding guys who could cover him in the one-on-one drills. He's a very smooth mover for his size. He's a big receiver, 6'3", he's over 200 pounds. You see the play strength with him. I was wondering about the movement and the kind of athlete of Malachi Fields, and being there in person, he's a lot smoother of a mover for those dimensions. than I had remembered from the broadcast views watching Notre Dame and Virginia over the last couple of years. And then you really like the ball skills with him as well. He gets off the line quick. He creates a little separation. It's hard to get through his body. And then the ball skills are really good. So he's going to catch it clean. He converts into being a runner really, really quickly. I think that's a day 2 target for sure for NFL teams that are looking for immediate help at boundary receiver.
Were there any receivers that improved their stock over the course of practice through the week, Thor?
Yeah, the biggest one was that Ty Montgomery kid from the Division III school, John Carroll. I'd never, most of these guys I've watched for years. I had never seen this Ty Montgomery. I hadn't even heard of him before the Senior Bowl announced that they were inviting him there. He was flashing immediately, and he flashed all week. The physical package there and the athleticism, it speaks for itself. This is a kid who walked on at LSU as a basketball player coming out of high school. He didn't start playing football until 2.5 years ago. Like he got sort of convinced, I think by his brother or a buddy or something like that, like you should try out for football. And he did so at the Division III level and then just put up video game numbers the last 2 years so that he got an invitation to the American Bowl first. Then he starred at that. So he gets the call up to the Senior Bowl. He was singeing all the top cornerbacks that were there. There was a top 50 overall guy from San Diego State named Chris Johnson. He beat him deep 40 yards down the field on Wednesday, climbed the ladder, went up and got it, picked the ball out of the sky over Johnson. Multiple times, Ty Montgomery beat Colton Hood, who was a potential first-round cornerback from Tennessee. He was doing a lot of this stuff with the release packages, beating Colton Hood like off of the line and stuff. That his release package is really slick, in particular for a guy that just started playing the sport. And our theory for why that is, you guys remember Stevie Johnson?
Yeah, of course.
So Stevie Johnson, remember how he would beat Darrelle Revis?
Yeah.
And he was like a thorn in the side of Darrelle Revis. And the reason was because Stevie Johnson's release package was so good. Well, when you would ask Stevie Johnson about his release package, he wouldn't talk about like, oh, learn this from coach or like he talked about, I brought that footwork from basketball. He's a former basketball player and it's like crossovers off of the line. This Ty Montgomery, he's a basketball player. He has we believe, has brought the footwork over in his release package from the hard court or whatever to the gridiron. So you have a guy who is more skilled at a young developmental age as far as playing the sport, only for a couple of years, that's more skilled than you would think for that. And again, NFL caliber athlete and ball skills on Ty Montgomery.
Yeah, Stevie Johnson, your favorite wide receivers. Favorite wide receiver. That's the way. Like, honestly, he's legend, and we've been lucky to have him on the show here. Thor Nystrom, our guest here. Thor, I thought it was kind of funny, and by funny, just kind of coincidental when I'm texting you, hey, would you have time on Monday? And you're always gracious. Seconds after that, we learned that the Vikings let go of their GM. I'm just going to hand the baton to you here. Was that a surprise that you had this big shakeup? And the timing, I think we can kind of admit, was a little weird.
It was stunning. And because of that timing, if it had happened right after the season, following the normal review process that they do, it wouldn't have been surprising. We thought that that was definitely in play. But yeah, in the NFL, you don't fire your general manager late January, early February. You especially don't do it when he's on a work trip. He was out at first the Shrine game, but we saw him at the Senior Bowl. Right. He was down there on the sidelines. He was there all week. They ended up delivering the news to him. I guess he was summoned back, and he got back on Friday, and that's when they delivered the news to him and stuff like that. But yeah, he was in Mobile through Thursday, and there was in one of the stories, he was talking contract with one of the players' agents, like on Thursday, like in his capacity as the GM. So this was totally unexpected to everyone, including the Vikings decision makers that ended up doing it, because you wouldn't have sent him to the Shrine game and then the Senior Bowl if you knew you were going to fire him during that week. It's obviously something that came together during Senior Bowl week. That's also been reported, that the owners had more meetings with the coaches earlier in the week, and that's what ended up leading to that decision. It seems like we've had a successful coup here pulled off in a grab for power by the head coach of the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, who is apparently going to get personnel say through the NFL draft. The Vikings immediately announced that they were elevating Rob Brzezinski to interim GM through the draft, that they would begin a search for a long-term GM after that. it's bizarre timing. It's bizarre timing. That's a little bit bizarre too. But yeah, it appears here that we've had a coup and that Kevin O'Connell is the captain through the draft.
Score North's Thor Nystrom joining us in the sports. We don't know anything about power plays here. We haven't seen anything like that happen in Buffalo. I mean, that just feels completely out of line. So I guess, in thinking about the termination of their general manager, I mean, the timing of it could be a surprise, but you can't really be surprised with a guy who drafted the way he did. And also, I mean, the big one, I felt as an outsider watching the Vikings let Sam Darnold walk that was going to be a mistake, that there was no way that 9 was going to get you 14 wins in 2025.
Yeah, as far as the drafting, the record kind of speaks for itself. I think Kwesi had 29 picks over 4 drafts, and you don't have a ton of contributors there. The first draft was an utter disaster, and what I heard, and this is sort of a benefit of the doubt for Kwesi, I suppose, but the 3 drafts since then, the coaching staff had taken more and more control over the cards that ended up getting submitted. So Kwesi was not making unilateral draft decisions here the last couple of years. So you give him that benefit of the doubt, and then also the quarterback thing. They're trying to paint that on him after the fact. I know you guys in Pagula, you have an idea of how that goes, over on that side, but. That's what's sort of happening here. But you go back to last year, right after the season, Kevin O'Connell had repeated opportunities to give. To say positive things about Sam Darnold, to suggest that he wanted him back or that they were going to pursue him. Every single time Kevin O'Connell was asked about that prior to Darnold ended up signing with Seattle, Kevin O'Connell would just say he has earned the right to test free agency, basically move it along. And Kevin O'Connell, it was also reported throughout that the one thing with the organization that he had unilateral call on was the quarterback position. There is some debate about the backup thing. I think that's what is probably more fair here. They all thought that they had Daniel Jones locked up for that. Daniel Jones changed his mind, goes to the Colts because he thinks he has a better shot to start there kind of last minute. And the Vikings were caught flat-footed with that. I think the fair thing, to put on Kwesi is you should have had a better, as it were, backup plan there. He didn't end up circling around to the backup quarterback till day 3 of the draft. That's when he made the trade with the Seahawks for Sam Howell. He wasn't a great fit with O'Connell. They end up trading him to the Eagles, and then they signed Carson Wentz off the street for the minimum a week before the season. That thing is fair to put on Kwesi, and it obviously reared its head with the injuries to McCarthy during the season. The rest of it, I think, has been unfairly portrayed in an attempt to put things on Kwesi's record that were not actually his decisions.
Interesting. Thor, just give us kind of the sense of the fan base. And if there's one fan base that can relate. In fact, we're kind of numb to this. If I can lump in our hockey team where, hey, there's Dominik Hasek and he wins a cup somewhere else, and whether that's Reinhardt or Jack Eichel or Ryan O'Reilly, in football, Marshawn Lynch, and oh my gosh, it might be Diggs now winning a Super Bowl before Buffalo gets one. What's kind of the vibe right now seeing Sam Darnold now starting in a Super Bowl, not in purple?
Yeah, not the best for the fan base. Things were already kind of have been toxic around the team. That was easy for anyone to see, and again, speaking to some of these changes that you've seen after the season, it's not a surprise because it was just a slog to be, in the Vikings building and then also be a Vikings fan, anything associated with that team this fall. And then you see, kind of your ex-girlfriend, or whatever is now, about to play in the Super Bowl, is favored by 4.5 points to win the Super Bowl. So, yeah, it's not the funnest. And then, another part of the reporting with the Kwesi thing was that Sam advancing to this point, is another thing that, was involved in that thinking and that maybe, led to these second meetings. It's certainly, if I'm indeed right about the Palace coup here, the emotional element of that probably helps your cause in attempting to make that push. But yeah, it's not the best. It's not a great look for the Vikings, obviously, and not the funnest for the Vikings fan base, who has never seen a Super Bowl winner right now. But a year after you made the decision, you've potentially seen your starting quarterback from last year go and win one now.
Yeah, and Thor, on top of it all, your best player, your star player, is being kind of critical of the team that he's on. And with that being said, what would it take to get Justin Jefferson in Buffalo? What does Brandon Beane have to do to make that happen?
I don't think that's going to happen for Mr. Bean, but I do think you can call about Mr. Jordan Addison. If that's something you want done, maybe we can go back to the Stefan Diggs trade and stuff like that, go back. But that's someone that you can get right now on a discount because of some of the, extracurricular activities there. That could be a way to get immediate help without surrendering a first-round pick at that position.
Thor, we do have one thing that from this past month, Terry Fontenot got fired in Atlanta, and Thor, we do a segment every year. I don't know if you were aware of this or not, but we go over the best takes of the year, and you were a take of the year finalist. This was from 2 years ago.
The guy who's running that room, Terry Fontenot, he does that every single year. He just torches assets. This is the fourth straight year that they've had a top 8 pick. In those 4 years, he's taken a tight end, he's taken a running back. Now he's taken a guy who will be a multi-year backup quarterback, and by the time he can finally get a chance, his rookie contract's going to be done. He's going to be closing in on 30. Terry Fontenot, in my opinion, should have been fired on the spot. I think that there's a really good chance that he has overseen his last draft process.
Thor, you were ahead of the curve on that, buddy.
Yeah, I miss terrible Terry, because every draft you have the 32 players around the poker table, and just having one who was a total wild card, who would just, pull things out of left field. Every pick was, kind of fascinating for that. Now, I wouldn't have wanted to have been a fan of the organization that Terrible Terry was running, but I loved watching it from afar. So, yeah, it was a sad day to see that he was fired, but that was one that you could kind of see coming in the distance.
It's interesting, Thor. You mentioned it, and you're so close to this in terms of the prospects and where they land and teams and their tendencies and what they're looking for and their needs. Are there GMs that are getting ready to line up? Are there one of those, a handful of those 32 poker players, as you mentioned, that could be wild cards come April?
As far as the Vikings?
Any team.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Vikings have definitely become a draft wild card for sure because, it's going to be O'Connell and then a bit of Flores is what the defenders. Flores has a ton of say on. But the fact that those two guys are running it and also that they're trying to save their jobs. And so, this is a parallel between this is my biggest fear as a Vikings fan and a parallel to Terrible Terry in the very end there with the Falcons. You guys remember last draft process when Terrible Terry, he trades back into the first round by trading his first round pick this year so he could get James Pierce. That trade was with the Rams. He was doing it to try to save his job because it was a one-off thing and he had control of the assets. My biggest, gravest concern as a Vikings fan, the 2027 draft is stacked. 2026 class that we're going to have in April, it's not that great. It's like a D draft class. That the Vikings will start trading picks from that stacked 2027 class this spring, whether that's trading up in the draft, whether that's trading for veterans, whatever that is. But in an attempt for everyone to save their jobs, get back on solid ground, you sort of steal from the future to do it. So, yeah, this draft process, it'll be pretty fascinating to watch the Vikings for sure.
Loaded question, Thor, but as we get ready for this draft, and this is the first conversation we're really having about it, if we go back to last year, now you and there are others, you're going down to Mobile, you are talking to people, you're watching tape, you're doing the work. The industry has AI, and they have people that are just putting out their mocks, and they're really just kind of, not doing the homework. The question's about Shedeur Sanders, because what happened last year, no one really had him falling to the fifth. In fact, when he was there, when the Saints were on the board in the second, I'm like, okay, this is where he goes. No, they take Tyler Shuck. So what lessons can we take from the whole Sanders saga and apply it moving forward?
I think there's lessons that both the NFL can take and that the Sanders side or future prospects could take. From the NFL side, I think that they were a bit too punitive there, and I think they were a bit too myopic. However Shadeur's career goes, he's going to return value on the selection that he ended up going in. But yeah, I do think that they'll learn some lessons from that. As far as for Shedeur, he could have had a better draft process. He ends up going to the Shrine game, and then he doesn't practice in it. They made a big deal to the media. He was going to be there, but then he doesn't practice it. That annoyed some people in the media, rubbed some people in the NFL the wrong way. And then during the draft process itself, some of the, he would see it as confidence. I think some other people might see it as brashness or arrogance. And then interviews. I started to get a sense of how poorly his interviews had gone, right before that draft and then after it, but especially anecdotes that I heard after it. And it wasn't just his interviews before the draft that caused that fall. He was literally going to be selected in round 3 by the Ravens, were it not for the phone call where the Ravens called him to do it. And that is now I had heard this right after the draft, but it wasn't like I wasn't going to put it out. Well, then someone else did at some point in the fall. Todd Monken just confirmed it, that video that he had with Shadir Sanders, where he's like, remember when we were going to draft you? Yeah, we'll talk. So, I mean, what happened was the Ravens called him and Shadir's like, I don't want to go there to be a backup. Right. And so then they don't pick him. That's how this fall occurred. Right, he would have gone in day 2 were it not for that. But yeah, then he ends up going to the Ravens. They're not going to take him then, right? Like in some other teams, they didn't need quarterbacks. Other ones, they weren't interested because of stuff like this. He had narrowed the amount of teams that could select him because of this, like, I want to play immediately thing, to such a narrow amount of teams. So that's why it ended up happening.
So that's interesting. And hey, he's a Pro Bowler this year. I don't know if you saw that or not, but the idea that Shedeur gets selected by the Browns, gets significant playing time as a rookie, and they still have Deshaun Watson, they still have Dylan Gabriel, and I bring up the Browns because Gabriel and Shedeur are still like they're going into their second year. How do you see that quarterback competition playing out here in Cleveland with Monken now in control?
Yeah, I'm curious, if they go out and they get a veteran, you're not going to see them draft anyone else. They drafted 2 in the last one, and like I said, bad quarterback class, and they're not in a position to take Mendoza. So, I mean, you'd think that they would add a veteran there, and I suppose that would set up presumably Shadir against the veteran. There's not many in free agency right now, and Cleveland's not a super desirable spot. Would they make a play for instance, a Malik Willis? That's probably the best that they could end up doing. In that case, a guy like that would be starting a course. But, you go second or third tier. I assume that would set up the competition. I just toss Gabriel out of this because Gabriel's not as good as Shadir. I think that's been proven out. In my opinion, it was proven out in college. But yeah, like I would expect Shadir in that pecking order above Gabriel going forward. And if they miss out on the top, couple free agent quarterbacks, there's such a huge drop off that Shadir could compete with any of them.
Yeah, Thor Nystrom. It is draft season, Senior Bowl just wrapping up. Thor, tell our audience where they can find your content.
You can find me on Twitter at ThorKU, and I'm now at Score North, which is in Minnesota here locally, doing 5 shows a week on the Vikings called Thor Talks Purple. You can find that on iTunes. You can find that on YouTube. Then we also do a show called Football Takes where my NFL draft stuff will be. So the rankings, the mock drafts, that sort of stuff will be on Football Takes. That's a channel at Score North as well.
Keep pumping out the content, man. We'll just keep gobbling it up. It's great stuff as always, Thor. Appreciate you making some time for us here.
Hey, appreciate it, boys, as always.
You got
Thanks,
it.
Thor.
There's Thor Nice from our buddy covering the NFL draft. And there's some interesting thoughts there on the dismissal of Adolfo Menza in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And
like how you're kind of painting him to be the bad guy. And like
you could say like, oh, he didn't have a good draft. Yeah. Oh, he let Sam Darnold walk. And then you look at how this all kind of shakes out with what Thor is saying to us. Yeah, it does feel like a little power play existed there.
Well, it looks like a coup.
Yeah.
That's the way it looks. If he is out of town, why are you allowing him to scout at the Senior Bowl? What are you doing? That should have been a decision. If you had decided that should have been right after the season, and you get everything in place, and you're going to be moving forward. Like, that's just a total waste of time. Yeah, the Vikings are a mess right now. So good luck to Kevin O'Connell. I'd like him calling Terry Fontenot terrible Terry, too.
Yeah. I love that. Thor is great. Appreciate him making some time for us, giving us a little bit of a Senior Bowl recap there. Thor Nystrom, you can check him out on X at ThorKU. Let's get to happy hour next, Gino. The Bills continue to round out their coaching staff. Joe Brady at work. And not only did we find out the offensive coordinator on Friday, but, of course, we learned the defense coordinator, the special teams coordinator, and a handful of other position coaches that have filled up here in Buffalo. We'll get to that. We have time for your calls as well. If you want to pull up a stool, feel free and join us now at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
BF Rochester, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills continue to round out their coaching staff. Bobby April III is your new outside backers coach. He was here under Rex Ryan. Jeff Rogers, the new special teams coach. Chris Brown with more.
Rogers has almost 25 years of NFL coaching experience, including 21 years coaching special teams in the NFL. I'm glad that a first-time head coach has a veteran OC and a veteran special teams coach and an up-and-coming defensive coordinator.
Davis Webb gets promoted to offensive coordinator in Denver. Sabres hockey tonight here on The Fan. They're playing one of the teams that's chasing them in the standings, a two-time defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Our coverage will begin at 7. Amherst at home Wednesday against Belleville. Syracuse basketball, tough assignment tonight. The Orange playing at number 14, North Carolina. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Welcome into Happy Hour, the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us and listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950, and the free-to-download Odyssey, iHeartRadio, or TuneIn apps. You can even watch the sports bar, our YouTube channel, and on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. Like and subscribe while you're there. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
All right, I want you to turn around and look.
I see it.
You see it. Now, so where our studios are, if you are familiar with Innovative Field, and then there's the parking garage.
Yeah.
High Falls Studios are on the other side of the
Gene
parking
is
garage.
facing west, and you
Yep.
can see through the High Falls parking garage to see the brilliant sun.
The sun kind of coming through the parking garage and just a splash into the studio. Danger.
I'm in a good place. Gino, I'm in a good place. It's February, the Groundhog Day today. The rat saw his shadow. 6 more weeks of winter, and I don't care. I don't care. I'm in a state of perpetual cold. Like, it doesn't bother me anymore. I was outside yesterday for a couple of hours just shoveling, and I shoveled a little path in the backyard. I call it the poop loop for Walter. Walter needs a spot because the snow is too high for him, and, you know, let him out the back door. He needs a little spot to go, so I created like a little track for him to go running around. Man, he was excited to get outside and do some running.
Yeah, sure. No doubt about it there. Do the same thing for my dog, Danger. We love our dog.
Yeah, you got a little poop loop in the backyard for Beasley?
Yeah, we just kind of shovel off the deck there and let him go down to his business. Gets out there a little bit. I think it's important that this time of year you're in a good spot. Here's the thing I learned today, because you brought up the groundhogs. I had no idea this is like every town has to have one of these. Like, did you know there's Dunkirk Dave? Dunkirk Dave says spring is coming, Danger.
Oh, okay. Well, if Dunkirk Dave says it, I mean, can we just call it for what it is? Every town has an opportunity to make money and have some shine. If you decide you want to do something on February 2nd when most towns aren't doing anything, go ahead. Get a groundhog and make your own Groundhog Day. Why not? Why does Punxsutawney get all the love? I have no problem with that at all. I mean, I'm not going to count on a groundhog to forecast be our meteorologist to forecast when spring might get here, but it's fun. It's fun. And hey, look, temperature-wise, we might not get above freezing until well past Valentine's Day. I'm at peace, Gino. Yeah. I'm at peace. I'm okay.
Yeah, that's fine. We got time for your calls in here in Happy Hour, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Look, let's just kind of review the weekend. Had a great time at the Emmer game talking to Marty Baron and others, and it was great to see a lot of people out there coming up and say hello. Steve and others, thank you very much for coming. We knew that Carmichael had been hired as the offensive coordinator. By the time Sunday happens, we know, all right, the Bills have their man here, Danger. Jim Leonard, the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, exciting stuff. First, from Friday, Joe Brady on One Bills Live talking about the coach the hiring of his offensive coordinator and Pete Carmichael Jr.
Pete has been, I said yesterday I don't want a lot of Joe Brady's, and Pete is not Joe Brady. And I said I wasn't going to hire friends. Pete is a guy that I've always looked up to because he doesn't get a lot of credit for a lot of the success that they had in New Orleans. But Pete was an integral piece for I don't know if they would have been able to do what they did without Pete. Having a guy that I trust, I can't be in the offense, or I'm not the offensive coordinator anymore. I can't be in there every single moment of the day. And now I have an offensive coordinator that also understands, and it's going to be a whole staff, but understands what that looks like. He's done that for so many years where I can trust that, hey, when I'm not in there, that room's going to keep moving along. And then he also understands the vision that I have and what it looks like. And he's as brilliant as they come. And I'm so excited I get to work with him.
I like that right out of the gate he addressed what a lot of us would probably say right away. Oh, you're just you said in your introductory that you're not going to hire a bunch of Joe Brady's, and you're not in the business of hiring your friends, yet the first person you hire is somebody that you worked with in New Orleans, and he addressed that right out of the gate, which I think is smart for him to do. And you don't get the sense that they're friends, but they have trust in each other.
Well,
that's totally cool.
Yeah, and Carmichael, 54. What is Brady, 36?
Yeah.
So they can be friendly, but they're not friends.
Brownie and Tasker earlier today on the hiring of Jim Leonhard, defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills.
He started out as a rookie free agent with the Bills, ended up playing 10 years in the NFL. That same perseverance and mindset have carried over into his coaching career. We couldn't be happier to get him back to Buffalo.
Jim's was one of those guys, and I told this story where we heard about him from Barry Alvarez back in Wisconsin before he even graduated. He ended up getting signed by a rookie free agent, as you just heard. Played for 10 years, and everywhere he went, he was impressive. And he's been one of those guys from the jump who's been like, wow, that guy's going to be a coach. That guy's going to be a coach. That guy's going to be a coach. And certainly he's turned into a really good one.
Steve says this all the time. Smart guys play a long time in the NFL. Leonard's a smart guy.
Yeah, Leonhard, I mean, he couldn't look less like a pro athlete unless he was me. I mean, he's just one of those guys who just did it with wit and guile and perseverance, and he helped a lot of his teammates play better. Coaches love that.
Underrated as a punt returner, too.
And he's a good decision maker.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it works, man. He's a good decision maker. So glad to have him back here in Buffalo. Glad to have him back.
Couple other hirings, this courtesy of Schefter. So inside linebacker coach John Igorugru, he is going back to Buffalo. He was here from 2018 to 2020. And the Bills are hiring an Oklahoma assistant as head coach and co-defensive coordinator Jay Valai is their cornerbacks coach.
Here's Chris Brown earlier today on both of those hires as well.
Former Giants inside linebackers coach John Igorugru is reported to be a coaching hire for Joe Brady as well. He's expected to serve on the Bills' defensive staff in the same capacity, inside linebackers coach. And the Bills are also reportedly hiring Oklahoma assistant head coach and co-defensive coordinator Jay Valai as their cornerbacks coach. He is a Wisconsin alum, played defensive back up there.
If I'm Brandon Beane, I really want a defensive overseer. I mean, are you ready to turn the keys over? Somebody like Ron Rivera, somebody like that. I think maybe Steve Wilkes might fit the bill there.
Oh no, come on!
But
a senior defensive consultant.
Yeah. Do we need somebody on that side of the ball if things are going sideways? Because then where do you turn? I think what do we know is true? We know there's going to be big changes on that side of the ball. The scheme likely will be different. The personnel likely will be different. And if you have those two things, guess what? I'm guessing there might be some growing pains. So as a Bills fan, are you willing to kind of endure this? Because knowing that the Bills have issues when it comes to spending money, I don't know if they're going to go shopping for the big ticket items or shopping period on that side of the ball. Danger. You might be filling this up with a lot of rookies and street free agents.
God, I was thinking Wilkes was going to get the nod as the defensive coordinator because it felt like the kind of move Brandon Beane would make. No, I was wrong.
Yeah,
it's a senior defensive consultant role. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense if you're Steve Wilkes. You bring him in for that role. He's not the DC, but he oversees the defense. I'm curious to see what Leonhard comes up with here. For as much as he's been propped up, how much does he make of this opportunity here to be a DC with the Buffalo Bills, and some of these names, start with the free agents that you get the sense won't be back. Guys like Joey Bosa, AJ Epinesa. Like, what do you do with the guys that you know are going to be here if you don't trade them? Guys like Ed Oliver, guys like Greg Rousseau. How do you modify their game? How do you modify where they line up, or what that all means? And then on the secondary front, have we seen the last of Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin, Cam Lewis, guys that have been on this team, and Cam Lewis specifically, you just know that's a McDermott guy. McDermott loves that. The versatility of that guy might get him to stick around in free agency, but there's going to be a lot of changes here. This defense is going to look different under Leonard.
Yeah, and it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Because quite honestly, wasn't good enough. Oh, the injuries, Gene. Okay. Sure. It wasn't good the year before that either. And again, we're setting the bar as get to a Super Bowl. Our phone number is 866-4FAN, 866-4326. The show is better when you participate, certainly, as Brad from Rochester joins us. Hey, Brad.
Hey. In looking at who has played with or been coached by Jim Leonard, Leo Chenal, who's available from Kansas City, and also Jack Sanborn, both of them linebackers. He played in Dallas. Both of them are free agents. Both of them are available, and you can have them for about $7 million total for both of them per year. And they played in Jim Leonard's system at Wisconsin, which was really good. Something to think about in terms of remaking that linebacker room since Milano's gone, Chick Thompson's gone. I don't know where Andreessen fits in or Dorian Williams. Bernard is signed, so he's going to be there forever.
Well, Bernard, and thanks, Brad. Bernard's back. Anybody else? Spector's not back. Can we be honest? Joe Andreessen, can you do better? If I'm on the air in Buffalo saying that, what are you talking about?
Right.
No.
I'll speak to Brad's comment on Sanborn because I'm familiar with him from his time in Chicago, and I just think a little bit undersized, a lot of heart. Plays hard, probably plays a lot like Jim Leonard, and might be partially why they're both Wisconsin guys, and they kind of have that they play bigger than themselves kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But Sanborn, to bring him in to be a starter, again, I think you can do better. Even if you were to look in the draft and invest in linebacker in the draft, I think you could probably be in a better spot.
Well, again, I'm just starting to read mock drafts, Danger, and mock draft season, and I've seen more than one suggesting the Bills will take linebacker C.J. Allen from Georgia, which, okay, it is a need, and if you can address the wide receiver position in other ways, i.e., Pierce from Indianapolis, waiting for a big trade, doing things like that, I'm fine going back to the defensive side of the ball because I do think you need new blood.
I think that when we talk about wide receiver and free agency, this feels like the part that we get wrong, that we've been burned on before. Like, I'm really starting to lean more towards drafting wide receivers. Just draft a couple. And do it early. Invest early if you have to. I know that you're going to look at Keon Coleman and be like, oh, you didn't get it right. I would say go back to that well and draft wide receivers, because what you're paying Palmer, what you paid Samuel, the guys that you're picking up in free agency, you're not getting the value that you need out of those players.
Right, and Samuel's at the end, and are you really smarter than the Chargers at that point? Like, the value wasn't there. Like, Brandon Beane, when it comes to draft and other things, value, and the wide receiver position has not been about value.
You got
Shakir signing.
Sure, but you got, I'll go back to when they drafted Gabe Davis. Like, that was a pick where you got value on that pick while he was in Buffalo, and he went and got paid more than what he was worth by Jacksonville.
Okay, what's the key thing about that draft, though? I can't think of the guy's name. Went to the Giants. Help me out here. Somebody.
Who, wide receiver?
Yeah. They drafted more than one wide receiver that year. Gabe Davis was one. Hodgins.
Yeah,
Isaiah Hodgins, who was a camp darling and then never stuck, goes to the Giants, and that was it. The point is, not everybody's going to stick.
That's right.
You just can't be like, okay, we're done there. If they drafted two wide receivers, I'd be happy with that. Who would argue against that?
Right. I prefer that that route over the free agent route just based on the track record of wide receivers and free agency for the Buffalo Bills. Hasn't been great. I brought up Gabe Davis earlier, too, when we were speaking with Dan Fates, 13 Web Sports at BuffaloPlus.com. I only bring up Davis. I know he's oft injured, but, man, he's not even 27 yet. Like, it's crazy that he's still young. He's not even 30, and he feels like he's been in the league for a long time. I don't know if that means the Bills bring him back.
No, they shouldn't. I mean, what would you get out of him this year? I mean, he tore his ACL in Jacksonville.
Yeah, he's recovering.
Same thing with, Shaves. Shaves was a
Nice
McDermott
story.
guy. Yeah, nice story. And meanwhile, we talk about Diggs. Like, Mac Hollins is always kind of making the catch. And New England didn't pay him all that much.
Showed up shoeless again, too. Weirdo.
Kind of odd.
He's just a weirdo. No, I didn't hate it, though. I didn't hate Mac Hollins when he was in Buffalo. Just kind of a weird guy. Does his own thing. But you're right, makes plays. Great blocker in the run game. And also, like, the guy who is the first person to try and lift up a teammate after a play is over. Like, he's looking for people to help up. He's just that guy. Kind of like that guy. So good conversations today with Dan Fates on what the Bills can do here now with this roster, knowing who they have at defensive coordinator. And also a little Senior Bowl recap from Thor and Ice from last hour and a peek into the dysfunction in Minnesota with the Vikings, who move on from their GM on Friday. And, that feels like a power play as well.
Well, if they don't have a GM, I mean, ultimately, who would put their name on trading Justin Jefferson? The head coach is really kind of overseeing. Brzezinski, I guess, is going to be the guy who's filling in, but he's not going to have the job long term.
Somebody going to check Justin Jefferson for saying what he said? I mean, is somebody within the Vikings organization, are they okay with him just saying, we would have been better if we had the quarterback that we had, if we would have had a quarterback that was here for more than a year?
See, that's the crazy thing. He's right. But in the culture in the NFL, you can't be saying that stuff because you don't want to hurt the current guy and his development, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I think McCarthy is toast, right?
Yeah.
How do you come back from that? It was a horrible season. There were moments where you could just see Kevin O'Connell didn't want to play him. He wanted to bench him.
So much so like Carson Wentz.
Yes.
Yeah, like Carson Wentz. Hey, McCarthy's pretty healthy. No, we're going to stick with Wentz. Okay.
Yeah.
Good luck.
That'll be interesting to watch this offseason. And Thor being right there in the blast zone. I wonder if they are the team that is the wild card in the draft, the team that just goes wildly off the board or does things that you're like, what? They become the new Atlanta Falcons, the new Terry Fontenot. Maybe resides there in Minnesota. It'll be interesting to see. If you missed either of those conversations, wherever you get your shows, you can find the Sports Bar. That includes Apple Podcasts. That includes Spotify. Search the Sports Bar. You'll get all of our guest appearances there.
We had an earthquake today. Not a big one. Not here. That was out 30 miles north of Santa Clara.
Oh.
4.6. And some felt it, some did not. And just kind of a reminder that, hey, a little snow and ice isn't such a bad thing. I've never felt an
When we
earthquake.
get earthquakes, do we feel them? I've never.
No.
I know, like, we'll hear every now and then, like, oh, there was a 2.2 magnitude earthquake in somewhere near us. And I'm like, I don't feel anything. Didn't feel a thing. Like, it doesn't affect us the way it affects them, obviously. But I would think a 4.1? 4.6? 4.6?
Yeah.
I mean, they know what an earthquake feels like, and you're saying some didn't feel it. It wasn't that significant an earthquake, I guess, just a tremor. Hopefully nothing that leads to more in the near future, obviously, with the sports world eyeing Santa Clara here this weekend.
So Josh Allen has a broken foot, and never once was he listed as questionable. Why? Well, because he was going to play all along. Like, that's really the reason. So what is the purpose of the injury report? Should it tell you, hey, somebody who's out there isn't going to be 100%, or is it just wordplay? I'm bringing this up today because the Patriots, Drake May is going to play, but the Patriots officially listing him as questionable with the shoulder injury. So, Mike Danger, that's where I'm like, aha, he's playing, but is that kind of a warning to bettors that maybe you won't get 100%?
I want to see him throw a football. We really didn't see him throw much in the playoffs. He was taking a lot of sacks. He was making plays with his legs. But how banged up is that shoulder? I want to see him make throws.
Yeah, this apparently what they're serving us is that this injury happened in the Denver game where you see him, get tackled and land. Yeah, he was kind of a pinata. And what's the effect on this in the point spread? The effect is
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. 4.5. Still Seattle favored.
Okay. Well, through the course of the week, we'll talk a little bit more about Seattle, New England. One of our favorites, take of the year winner, Fitzy. He's going to join us on Thursday.
He's out there.
Yeah.
And he sent me he's been texting me memes and everything else. And look, we were like, ha, 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 we're on top here. Look what's happened to you. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, Coach Mayo. Ha, ha, ha. You screwed up the number 1 pick.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Wow.
It was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
Patriots. They're insufferable. But that said, Fitzy, he'll take the good with the bad and he'll be a good sport, I'm sure. He's not your typical insufferable chowder.
This feels like the 0-1 Patriots. Like, granted, that was a double-digit spread they were up against the Rams, but nobody's really saying, hey, they can pull this off. They're only 4.5-point underdogs. Why is that?
Sam Darnold.
Correct.
That's why. The guy who's the favorite to be the game MVP is also the reason why the point spread is only 4.5, because we've seen some stinkers. And look, Drake May hasn't had, like I said, he may play with his legs, but he's taken a lot of sacks. It's been a little bit turnover prone. We'll see. Should be fun. I'm not saying it's a good game. I'm not saying it's going to be thoroughly enjoyable, but let's soak it all up while we have it, because we're going to miss it when it's done. The ride comes to an end, and then you have to get back in line and wait for the new league year and everything else to start once that Super Bowl is done. So Fitzy joins us on Thursday. We'll let him be our ears and eyes at Radio Row there in Santa Clara. We should mention tomorrow on the show, as we do every Tuesday, we'll check in with Matt Perino, Syracuse.com. We'll check in with Amerks head coach Mike Leone, as the team got a split with Hershey in the win on Friday night at Blue Cross Arena.
They're rested. Like, when do they get, one game on the weekend? So they're back on Wednesday against Belleville.
Yeah, the homestand continues. So we'll talk Bill's coaching staff with Perino. We'll talk Amerks homestand with Leone. That's tomorrow afternoon here in the Sports Bar. Gino, let's move to a round of shots.
So the story about Paul George getting a 25-game suspension. Okay, right. We move on. Charles Barkley bringing up a good point, putting it through a different lens. They're like, okay, does the NBA have kind of a bad PR thing on their hands? And we'll kind of explain it. I don't know where this story is going to go here. Is we don't, the NBA right now we're starting to turn our attention to just a little bit. Did you see this hit from the Nighthawk game? Holy mackerel. We'll discuss was that legal or not. And my opinion, this was the NHL game of the year last night. If you missed it, we'll redo it.
All right, we'll get into that and more next. A round of shots coming up. Don't forget about Last Call. You can have the final word in the Sports Bar when you pull up a stool and join us at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
You're listening to the Sports Bar.
More new names for the Bills coaching staff as Bobby April III is the new outside linebacker coach. He was here in 2015-16 under Rex Ryan. The new inside linebacker coach is John Igorugru, formerly of the Giants. Jay Valai is the new cornerbacks coach. Valai formerly at the University of Oklahoma. Chris Brown and the new defensive coordinator, Jim Leonard.
Brady said in a statement on the hire of Jim Leonard, quote, Jim's vision for what he wants from our defense and the personality they play with is the exact style of what I was looking for from a defensive coordinator. You could tell how smart and versatile his secondary was when we watched them on tape. He is super intelligent, a great communicator, and highly regarded in this league.
Meanwhile, Davis Webb gets promoted to offensive coordinator in Denver. Sabres hockey tonight. They're in Sunrise against the Panthers. Our coverage will begin at 7. Syracuse tonight playing at North Carolina. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Listen to 95.7 The Fan Rochester on the Odyssey, iHeartRadio, or TuneIn apps, and take the sports leader with you everywhere you go.
Happy hour continues. Thanks for joining the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia here on the Fan. Time for a round of shots.
So if you're in crisis management, Danger, like I'm not talking like, hey, we shouldn't have drafted the wide receiver, right? I'm talking about, oh my gosh, our boss, his name is in the Epstein files here. How do you handle this?
God.
Do you ignore and deny and let the whole thing blow over? Or do you put out a statement today? What do you think the Giants did?
They tried to get in front of it, even though it's all out there, and they put out a statement.
They did, and this is the owner dictate. If you aren't familiar, Steve Tisch, he's the co-owner of the New York Giants, and there was his name popping up a lot of things, but I haven't really dug deep into this. But here is the statement, and there's one thing that kind of jumps out to me. Quote, we, meaning he and this guy, had a brief association where we exchanged emails about adult women. And in addition, we discussed movies, philanthropy, and investments. I told him, meaning Epstein, not to take any of his invitations and never went to his island. As we all know, he was a terrible person and someone I deeply regret associating with. I like how he had to acknowledge women, that, yes, they're all adults, though. How would he know, though?
Was that wrong? Should I not have done that? I tell you, I gotta plead ignorance on this thing, because if anyone had said anything to me at all when I first started here that sort of thing was frowned upon, because I've worked in a lot of offices, and I tell you, people do that all the time.
I would just ask, because people should ask follow-up questions, and one of these emails, Tisch is asking Epstein if this woman is a working girl and is exotic.
Aliens.
Right.
Aliens. I mean, not that there are certainly plenty of bad people amongst us, right, amongst the working class. But when you're that kind of wealth, you never hear the word no. You're accustomed to getting what you want, when you want it, however you want it. And it seems like that's what this was about, right? Like, are they working girls? Can I get them exotic? It's gross. The whole thing is gross.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
No. The NFL says they're looking into the matter. See, that's how the NFL, and then...
Yeah, will anything happen to him because he's been associated with this? No. Will anything happen?
Like the NFL's looking into Richie Incognito for something he might... Would they look into things and... you go to the corner and you'll forget
the
about
NFL
it.
is more. Here's what we're looking into with the NFL. How do we make the game explode internationally? Can we play more games overseas?
Yes, that is one of the highlights of today's little news drop in the NFL, letting you know, hey, let's not talk about the fact that, there were 10 hires and not one was a minority, even though that's something we were really stressing.
Is there anybody that's going to press Goodell on that?
Well, it can't be Jim Trotter because they fired him.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So,
forgot about that. Yeah, that's
no,
true.
Don't talk about that. We are going to Paris.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, hey. Oui, oui. Going to play a game in Paris for the first time.
Apparently it's against the Browns, but they haven't
officially confirmed that yet. But the
it's,
Saints are going to Paris. We know that for a fact.
This wasn't your typical outdoor hockey game last night. Boston and Tampa Bay, game taking place at the home of the Bucs, Raymond James Stadium. Now, first, Lightning players, they all did their cosplay thing. They dressed up as Buccaneer players wearing the Buccaneer Bruce throwbacks, even the helmets going into the stadium. That's cute. Tampa falling behind by 4 goals. It's 5-2 Boston in the second. That's when Jeremy Swayman, the goalie for Boston, takes a few liberties, and Andre Vasilevsky sees an opportunity. So for the first time in outdoor game history in the NHL, we had a goalie fight, and this one wasn't close. Vasilevsky pounding Swayman. That sparks Tampa. They end up tying the game at 5. It goes to overtime. And David Pastrnak thinks he has the game winner for Boston, but wait, he's actually called for slashing. Okay, then why wasn't the play blown dead and Boston was able to break out and touch it all the way up the ice? These are questions we don't know the answers to. Tampa wins in the shootout. First time in franchise history they overcome a 4-goal deficit. And to top it all off, there's Lightning head coach John Cooper looking like a Caribbean businessman, suit and hat, smoking a victory cigar as his team came off the ice.
Listen, I have a lot of thoughts on this because I didn't watch it. You did. Now, tell me. Did they go into it as far as like how they kept the ice? I know it wasn't like hot in Tampa.
So it's just kind of like air-conditioned tent and everything. So by the time the sun is down, I didn't look like it was anything bad to me. So it kind of pulled it off. As fun as this game was to watch, I don't think outdoor hockey on television prints well.
I agree.
You're too much boards that can't figure out for whatever reason what camera angles.
I agree. And that's primarily why I didn't watch it. Like I'm just okay, another outdoor game, great. But I have a little bit of FOMO here because I saw the highlights and the goalie fight looked awesome and it looked like a lot of fun. So kudos to Tampa and the Rays for the Lightning for being able to pull that off. And I also feel really, really bad that something negative has happened to Boston sports fan. I mean, things have been, they can't get over. It's been time and time again. It feels like things just never break Boston sports fans' way. So the Pastrnak call, really unfortunate.
You know who's friends with John Cooper? Mike Leone. So we got to ask Mike here. Like, well, he's not doing any outdoor games this year, but what would he do? Would he ever go that far?
So, I mean, that was the part of it that I didn't understand. Because, again, you watched it, I didn't.
Yeah.
They all dress up to go in, and that's fine. But why is Cooper dressed up like Havana Mo? What's going on there?
So isn't that part of Tampa, though? Like Ybor City?
Was he trying to be a Buccaneer? Was he trying to dress up like a pirate? I don't understand.
He's representing the cultural history of his town.
I guess what I'm asking is, was that dictated? Like, did the NHL say, we want y'all to dress up like it's Halloween for this event? Because I can't imagine the players and the coaches were like, yeah, sign me up. I don't know. I mean, like, good for them for getting into it. If they were actually into it, or was this a dictate? Like, no, you have to. This is a TV event, a made-for-TV event, and we need this to look like it was made for TV.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, then they did something right with the NHL because, now we're headed to the Olympics. And the update on the Olympic arena, it's not going to be finished. Okay, there's still dust there. Like, as of this morning, the report, they're finishing the toilets right now.
Okay.
So you know how
they've had events there. I thought they had events there already, no?
Well, yeah, but private. I'm talking about for the spectators and everything else. So like it's literally something's going to go wrong and I'm all for it.
Yeah, can't wait.
Third baseman Eugenio Suarez finally gets signed in free agency. 1 year, $15 million by the Cincinnati Reds. He had 49 homers last year, splitting time between Arizona and Seattle. After the trade, though, he batted just 189. That, coupled with an uncertain labor situation in 2027, as you might have heard, meant the offers just weren't there for a 34-year-old.
All right, so the Reds making a splash.
Well, they had some money set aside for Schwarber, and I know a couple Reds fans, and they were all like, "Oh, he's got to come home, Schwarber." No, he resigned.
You will get Suarez, and you will like it.
If you like your hits big in sports, and if you haven't seen this yet, and I got to show this to Danger, go check out Rylan Hartley and the Nighthawks laying out Steph Charbonneau of Vancouver. The goalie for Vancouver is trying for the home run pass to the center of the field. Charbonneau, running right up the center, is looking over his shoulder to locate the ball. He doesn't realize that Hartley is about to line him up and send it in next week. Hartley gets a match penalty for this, which carries an automatic one-game suspension. Rochester lost this game 16-6. Oh, by the way, these two teams play again this weekend in Vancouver.
But Hartley won't be on the field.
That's right.
That's a bummer. Yeah, the hit was magnificent. A complete decleater. Just snatching souls.
I have watched that. I've slowed it down. And the Vancouver player, he turns his head, but for some reason, he just does not. He does not see him.
Yeah.
So it's so bang, bang. But the idea that Hartley went way out of his crease to do this when he had other defenders.
I got flashbacks of the Mormon hit on that one.
Ooh.
The Sean Taylor Brian Mormon hit in the Pro Bowl. The last significant Pro Bowl that we've ever seen in our lifetime.
So to me, the biggest hit on the ice that I've ever seen in real time, Brian Campbell on R.J. Umberger of Philadelphia.
We remember that one. R.J. had the legendary call on that one, right?
Yeah.
I got to find that call. Let me see.
You
if I can
have that
find
call?
I might have that call.
Umberger, again, this is before they're wearing visors and before we knew that, hey, head injuries are a really, really bad thing. Like, Umberger's head goes off the ice, and his eyes are just looking straight up at the ceiling.
And now the players will pick it up and bring it back. Oh, what a hit by Campbell! Holy mackerel! Campbell stepped into his check in the blue line. Now they're all chasing after Campbell. Brian Campbell leveled his check at the blue line. Now that was Umberger, and he had his head down big time, and Brian Campbell ran over him like a Greyhound bus.
Rick Chenerad.
So the call
amazing.
Camera play on our station, ESPN Plus, though. Craig Rybczynski, a good friend of the show, he's like, oh, they're calls like, oh my God, going with that, and was it dirty? Maybe, I don't know.
Hey, look, if I'm watching lacrosse, that's what I'm watching for.
This is the best thing that could have happened because it ends up on Barstool. And the guy who writes on Barstool says great crowd in Rock Vegas. And you see everybody's so it's the way they kind of frame the shot. Honestly, I don't know what the attendance was on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
You can't buy that.
Yeah.
That is publicity you can't buy, and it kind of went viral everywhere. So
yeah.
It's like, hey, look at this hit. Whoa.
Yeah, he snatched some souls on that one. Unfortunately, he won't be able to help out the team this weekend in Vancouver. And we got to end this skid here. We got a 2-game skid. I don't like that either.
I don't like that. Still a few months left in the season.
Yeah, good start to the season, but a little bit of a lull here for the K-Hawks.
The suspension from over the weekend, Paul George of the 76ers, 25-game suspension for testing positive for a banned substance. Okay. No, that's not the end of the story.
Oh.
The king of all takesmen, Charles Barkley, says there's more to the story. Barkley says that George was taking medication for his mental health.
Oh.
Barkley defending George, saying that he should get a hall pass for this.
Well, that's interesting. But what we don't know is what the NBA considers a banned substance.
Yeah.
So what is Barkley suggesting? Antidepressants are part of the banned substance?
I would think like mental health, right? So that should be first and foremost. So can you get an accept? Like, I want to learn more about this. Like, Barkley's saying BS on this.
Yeah.
And this is a bad look for the league unless we stop caring about mental health back in 2022.
Right. And how I guess I without knowing the list of banned substances in the NFL in the NBA, I'm curious as to how deep that list goes with medications or over the counter or street drugs.
I was trying to watch Celtics Bucks yesterday, and I'm just
Knicks are back on track. At least you got to like that.
Yeah, but regular season NBA, it just kind of feels like we're just kind of going through the motions a little bit. Yes, apparently the Knicks are into Giannis. We'll have some sort of...
No, we're hearing all kinds of rumors around Giannis. Minnesota, the Knicks. Half the league probably wants a piece of Giannis. I also saw that we can't appreciate enough how LeBron James is going to be once again in the All-Star game. I think for the 22nd time.
There's rumors of LeBron going back to Cleveland. I think the Lakers have made it pretty clear this is it.
This is it.
Yeah, so like it's either go to Cleveland one more time or retire.
Oh, what a story it would be. I'm going back to the place where it all happened.
Danger. He will take time. Here's what I see in the future.
Tell me.
It will be an Aaron Rodgers sort of, what's he doing?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
Oh,
Pay attention to me.
Cryptic, little tweet, little this, little that, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden he'll pop up in Cleveland, and you will have to bend your knee at every stop. They will have to do the King James and honor him. The fact that he didn't do that this year, that nobody was really sure. In Cleveland, they're doing a tribute video, as they should. He won him a championship, right? But last night, the Garden were like, what's the play? He will want that. He will absolutely want that. And I feel bad for me. Why do I feel bad for me? Because I'm going to hear a dangerous head explode after every one of these stops next year.
Well, we just can't appreciate the guy enough. A guy that I think universally is viewed as, at worst, the second best basketball player of all time. But please make sure you respect and honor King James.
I would think retire, just give him the Vegas ownership. Let's get to the expansion.
Right.
They've been teeing up for a decade now.
Yeah.
Finally, this is a week where football players, they work their whole lives for it. Super Bowl week, right? And there are the shots of these players stepping off the plane on Sunday. Patriots arrive. Stephon Diggs wants you to know that he arrived. Now, he considers himself a fashionista, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like he goes to the Met Gala every year. Diggs arriving in the furriest winter coat possible, like he was ready for Siberia. Mind you, yesterday in Santa Clara was 65 degrees.
I did see Diggs stepping off the plane. Now, what you're describing, I don't think does it justice, because when I hear furriest winter coat or furriest fur coat, I think of like the full length, like mink coat. And it wasn't that. It was like a jacket, but it was furry. It had
then it has the hood, and the hood, it's like he's wearing this mane. It looks so much fur.
Yeah. But that's I'm not making excuses. That's Diggs.
That's Diggs. It's total. Look at me.
That's Diggs.
I'm the alpha.
I'm a fashion guy. That's Diggs. I know he's a polarizing figure around these parts, and I'm not saying he's a good guy, but I kind of miss that. Kind of miss knowing that you have that wide receiver one on your roster. I hope he loses on Sunday. I'll say that. But the teams make their arrival, and what happens? They land, and there's an earthquake. Oh boy.
He is doing court Friday, February 13th in Dedham District Court. That's 5 days after the Super Bowl. So let's play this out. Sometimes they wait till Friday for the Super Bowl parade, right?
Oh, in Boston?
Yeah. If they win, do they purposely move things up? So that would be a bad look, right? Well, Stephon Diggs couldn't be here today. He's got a court date, everyone.
Yeah. That's Shots in the sports bar. We're back tomorrow afternoon.
I don't like when I feel like I get clipped. I had so much more to say.
I know.
All right.
Sorry, Gino.
It's all right.
We'll resume on Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Matt Perino of Syracuse.com joins us at 3:25. We'll talk Buffalo Bills football. And then head coach of the Rochester Americans, Mike Leone, stopping by tomorrow afternoon as well.
Syracuse at North Carolina. What's the vibe here,
I'm going to try and do a reverse jinx for the Orange fans out there. Feels like a loss. Just put it out there.
Wow.
Bet MGM tonight. Brad Evans, Pep Boyle on the way next. Here on the Fan Rochester. Have a great night.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with